participants. That makes me nervous.
What?
I don't have any participants. I said that makes me nervous because usually we have 5 or 6 people.
Didn't that happen last time too, for a little bit, and then you found them or something? I feel like we did this last time.
Okay.
Well, when Paula was in the last meeting,
Somebody would be calling.
Rock and roll.
Well, and I know the guy.
All right, call to order at 7 o'clock. Verification meeting notice.
Posted it on the web.
2 then, roll call, please.
Mrs. Blazinski. Here. Mr. Brisboy.
Here.
Mrs. Variance. Here. Mr. Lewis.
Here.
Mr. Manning.
Here.
Mrs. Peterson.
Here.
Mrs. Rowe.
Here,
Okay, then 3, approval of the agenda.
So moved.
We want to amend the agenda.
Good point. Let's amend this. I move to amend the agenda, moving item 9.4 up to, do we want it between, after citizen forum?
Yep.
After citizens forum at item 5.
Is there a second to amend that? Second, Mr. Manning, to amend the agenda to move 9.4 up after 5, citizens forum. All in favor of amending the agenda as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. So 4 then will be approval of the minutes of the August 10th, 2020 meeting.
I didn't see
I didn't
anything.
see anything either. I would move to approve as presented.
I'll second it.
And moved by Mr. Brisboy, second by Mrs. Peterson to approve the August 10th meeting minutes as presented. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Then the August 24th, 2020 meeting minutes.
On 7.5, say motion to read not mention. 7.5.
I noticed that, but all of the things that are roll call votes, they don't say yes or no after them, and they usually do in the minute. The only one that's called out is where there was a different vote. I don't know that it matters, but they're usually spelled out in the other minutes, so I didn't know if you wanted to know that.
Do we need to amend them?
That's what I've got down.
Okay, amend them to,
I would move to approve pending the amendments, the changes.
Mr. Brisboy made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Blazinski. All in favor of approving the August 24th, 2020 meeting minutes as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, then 5, citizens forum. Any citizens wishing to speak?
I'm Shelley Skellen. I would like to speak in regards to agenda number 9.2.1, the fall high school sports.
You can speak when we get to that part of it. Mhm. Yep.
All right.
Anybody else on any items that aren't on the agenda?
If I need to, I'll tell you.
Yeah, we'll have open discussion at that time. Anyone else wanting to speak, citizens forum?
We got 2 weeks in.
Yeah,
So far, so good. Everybody does their part. We'll keep going.
a
But
lot of hard work by staff,
Yeah.
the kids and that. I appreciate all of that. And
so far, they've been doing a good job. Wearing masks, distancing, washing more than normal. We thank the staff and kids for doing that.
anyone else? Okay, then we'll go to 9.4 then, discussion of possible action on the resolution authorization and the issuance and sale of approximately 2.707 million taxable, convertible to tax exempt general obligation refunding bonds and rescinding the resolution authorization, the insurance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed 2.8 million taxable general obligation refunding bonds adopted on July 13th, 2020.
So Kevin, are you out there? If you see him.
I do not see him.
Okay. So I invited Kevin from Robert Baird to be on in case you had other questions, but back in March and April when COVID hit, we started seeing that the interest rates were dropping. And so I reached out to Baird to see if there was possibility of refinancing our 2 bonds. And so they did some legwork at that point and told us they'd get back when they started seeing things more regulated or whatever. So we did just close on the Fund 38 refinancing. And that was for the Upper 90 project that we just did in 2019. And so with that refinancing, we went from, let me get my notes here, sorry. In July, they talked about possibility of 1.89% interest, and we actually closed at 1.81. So we are, our savings, actual savings on that note is gonna be over $18,125. That's a 10-year note, and we've paid 1 year already, so. The other refinancing that we put out was on the 2014 edition, the elementary edition. And in July, they were estimating that the interest rate would be 2.06, and it came in at 1.81%. So our savings went from an estimated savings of $68,572 to an actual of $120,924.
Kevin's here.
Hi, guys.
So as Lisa explained earlier, when she was here in the July when we did the resolutions for these, because we had to do the resolutions so that if in fact the markets went where we wanted them to go, we could lock in any time when it got low enough. But the second bond that we are changing the resolution for tonight is the first part of it is a non-callable bond. And then, so it's gonna be a combination of taxable and non-taxable refinancing with it converting. Is that correct, Kevin? Is that how?
Yes, that's correct. So federal tax law says that these bonds would need to be, for an advanced refunding, would need to be issued as taxable bonds. The lender that we're working with actually allows this to convert to tax exempt bonds at the call date, which is in 2024. So it's really a great opportunity for the school district to take advantage of low interest rates and the conversion to tax exempt rates in 2004.
So I asked Kevin, he's from Robert Baird, as I said earlier, and I asked him just to be on in case you had other questions that you wanted to ask him.
And I apologize, I had some difficulty accessing the agenda, so sorry I'm a little late.
That's fine, thank you.
Anybody have questions or comments? Otherwise, what do we need to do?
Well, we need to act on the resolution that's on the agenda for tonight, the one that you just read. So what we're doing is we're authorizing another resolution and rescinding the one we did in July in order to do this kind of financing.
So do we need to do that in 2 parts?
No, it's all in one
It's
resolution.
an
Okay.
and.
So we just need a motion to accept or adopt the resolution
Also,
by Ms. Wazinski. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Manning. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brisboy.
Yes.
Mrs. Variance.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Manning.
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson.
Yes.
Mrs. Rowe.
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski.
yes.
Thank you for all the hard work with Barrett and Cheryl.
Thank you, Kevin, for showing up.
Thanks.
Yes, my pleasure.
Quite a savings for the school, so we appreciate all the hard work.
Yeah, you're very welcome, and it's really good that you're able to take advantage of these low interest rates. It's terrific. So really well done, Cheryl.
Thank you.
No, nothing else on that, then, Cheryl?
Nope, I don't have anything else on it.
Okay, then we'll move back to 6 committee reports. 6-1 Finance and Personnel Committee report from September 14th.
We had a few checks that we talked about. We had $4,440 to Aptitude for our website and school app renewal for the year. We had $3,215 to Badgeland Sporting Goods for various volleyball and football expenses. $8,625.75 to CDI Computers for some new cases for MacBooks and some desktops for the teachers. We got electronic books for social studies for middle school for $1,827.25. We had a partial audit fee to Johnson Block for $5,225. A certified playmat for the playground to JR Mulch Sales for $2,270. CESA free quarterly billing for $9,783. Our annual iReady fee to Curriculum Association for $12,320. Covered by the COVID grant, we had $5,315 to AM Unlimited for all the dividers for the teachers. And then also covered by the COVID grant, we had expenses for Bluetooth headsets so the teachers could Zoom and talk to the class at the same time without being right by their computers, and that was $2,978.55. Then we also talked about the debt servicing, which we just voted on, and some stuff about Ithaca Fair Day that we'll be discussing later in our regular board meeting, and that was it.
Any questions, comments for Finance Personnel Committee? Yep. Seeing none, we'll go on to 6.2, Buildings and Grounds from September 2nd.
We had the building of the building and grounds. It was a brief meeting. We discussed the new bids, reviewed bids, again for the HR, the office area and the main office. Then we discussed the purchasing of portable sinks, had a further discussion on that, whether, and we moved to, recommendation was to move ahead with that. Discussed the first day in school and how the facility was flowing, how the students were moving throughout, how things, if there was any challenges. And then we discussed other matters, how the outdoor venues were working, and we concluded with setting the next date for October 7th.
Any questions, comments for Buildings and Grounds? Okay. If not, then we'll move on to 7 reports. 7.1 District Administrator's Report.
So basically, we've just been trying to keep up with everything. Thank you for everybody. We cannot do this alone. I think the social emotional learning went really well. And the kids seem fairly calm about stuff when it comes to talking about their feelings. And sometimes that's a little tricky with middle school, high school kids. They're okay with it more in the elementary, but, and then I got some stuff from WRSA for you, and we still have to hire an SEL coordinator and a AmeriCorps member. I think that's it.
Julie, can you explain a little bit more what the SEL and AmeriCorps member would do?
So the AmeriCorps member, these are both grants that I wrote and we received. SEL coordinator is someone that will be working with our teachers about implementing SEL in their curriculum to build it in. So we need somebody that's certified, not necessarily in social emotional learning, but somebody that is aware of it and has used it and can work with adults in placing it in their own curriculum so it becomes more natural. And the AmeriCorps member is a person that will be hired that will work on a lot of the farm to school initiatives, bringing different kinds of foods to the kids to sample. They have tons and tons of duties. So yeah, they're part-time. I'm trying to get another district to work with us and get us a full-time member, but nobody's snapping up that idea.
And we do use farm to school in the elementary. They come from, usually through the extension office, we get somebody for about 6 or 8 weeks. And it depends on the year what their focus is, but a lot of trying fruits and vegetables, how to grow it, how it's part of whatever you eat. Try to feed what I stuff. So hopefully somebody will pick that up.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, we will move on to 7.2 then, Principal's Report, Ms. Shane.
Highlighted last month, teachers are working on learning how best to access and use the technology needed to do both in-person and virtual instruction. Doing both is very strenuous, and the teachers are putting forth great effort to provide the best possible learning for all students under these new conditions. Elementary staff, we meet every Wednesday at 7:45 to review the week and look to what is yet to come. We will be incorporating the 4 questions of the professional learning community model. And the questions are there: what we want students to learn, how we'll know when they're learning, what do we do if they don't learn, and what do we do if they already know something. So that will become part of our staff meeting norms. Technology remains a challenge as we are still waiting for tablets for the K2 students along with additional Chromebooks for the 3rd through 5th grade. Currently on virtual Wednesdays, students are Zooming in with their teacher if the parent guardian has a home device that works for them, or the teacher will make a phone call to the student. We had anticipated using older Kindle Fires in the 4K, but they do not have the capability to verbally engage with the teacher. Mr. Hess has done a phenomenal job helping to get all online, work out issues as they arise. He and his student assistant, Wyatt LeCount, are so helpful and are very much appreciated by all staff. Currently, the elementary students do not take Chromebooks home for virtual Wednesday, but as we use Schoology more and more, that may change. We are sending home a Chromebook with any student who is home for virtual learning for long or short-term situations. Reminder to all families, if you do not have strong Wi-Fi connection at home, the school parking lots have Wi-Fi available for you to download the content placed in Schoology for the students' learning. While waiting to pick up your child at the end of the day is a great time to download the materials. Teaching and paraprofessional substitutes are very limited this year. This is something the board should be aware of. We only have about 6 to 7, and 3 of them we hired for our long term. So anyone who is willing to get certified is asked to call and request information. CISA is having substitute training on September 24th. The elementary students are doing a great job following the new protocols we have in place to help slow or stop the spread of COVID. They maintain 6 or more feet as much as possible in the room and the hall. They wear masks except during scheduled mask breaks. We sanitize more and they are more thorough and thoughtful about hand washing. I have been very pleased with how the students are doing their part. Things staff are expected to focus their attention on the essential standards they identified in their content areas. We will continue this work during our PLC PD times this year, as well as learn better how to use and implement Schoology. And we continue to look for curricular resources to use digitally. Although most students are in the building for in-person learning, we do have fully virtual learners as well as students who are out for short periods of time to continue to learn virtually. So trying to have things prepared so that we're not making habits all the time. Questions?
Any questions, comments from Ms. Shane? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to 7.3. Principal's report, Mr. Lechner's report.
Well, we're excited to see the school year actually started after all the planning and everything. It was nice to see the students. They were pretty excited being here, at least most of them. I think the first couple of weeks have gone by very well. There were certainly some hiccups, but we all expected that there would be. And overall, I think most staff and students are pleasantly surprised at how well the days have progressed. The first day we had all of the students' temperatures checked and then filed into the gym. And they entered school to pick up their Chromebooks because I took an awful lot of phone calls from parents, whether or not their kids would have their schedules or anything. But Mary Jo, Barb, and Adam put all the schedules inside the Chromebooks. It went very smoothly. Most everybody found their classrooms. A couple of freshmen still had a little trouble with it, but we also told the students that you can only use your lockers in the beginning of the day and at the end. Most of them have been following that. The teachers all told them that hopefully you can all follow the protocols, and possibly we can look at maybe using the lockers a little bit, because we have some students that we have a lot of books that they have to carry all day long. And if we could have some sort of, maybe the freshmen would use their locker 3rd hour, or the sophomores 4th hour. So that's down the road, but the students have been doing a really good job on that. The virtual students have been learning all the protocols to sign in and be involved in their classes. That's been taking some time. And also that the virtual students have to learn that they have to check in every class period. And obviously that was different from last semester. So I think it's worked out well. It was nice that we had the 1 hour delay schedule for the first 2 weeks to do the SEL, the social emotional learning series. I had many positive comments about this from parents and from students. The shortened schedule also works well because students have a chance to check in or make appointments with teachers for extra help. Teachers have some extra time to prepare for their in-person and virtual students. And the admin has some time to meet with staff to work out some of the kinks that have come up. One of the things that we found during the shortened schedule was the fact that 5th hour, we have about 70 high school kids in study halls. And that's because of the minimizing of the band and choir. So the schedule initially had high school lunch after 6th hour, but we decided to switch it to after 5th hour because then we can get those 70 students through the lunch line before the other half of the students come through during lunch. That's worked out pretty well. We had a little hiccup today, but I'm confident it'll work well. Again, we know some things are still need to be worked on, but we're identifying them, and I'm really happy with the effort of both the staff and students. I think the opening has gone extremely well. Any questions?
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Willis? Seeing none, we'll move on to 7.4, then business managers report.
Don't have a lot to tell you other than lots of reports that have been being done and are in the process. As you can see the list there. I did give you a report on the Upper 90 project. We did finish spending all the technology money. So that money has been spent. Now we just gotta pay it back.
Any other questions, comments?
We did see some energy savings as I shared that one board meeting. Upper 90 is going to do a more in-depth comparison for us and show us what kind of savings we're saving on electricity as well as heat. Heat sealed and that sort of thing. So we'll have that another meeting.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, then we'll move into 7.5, athletic director's report.
All right, all the fall sports are off and running. We got 4 runners out for cross country with the Richmond Center Co-op. There's 40 boys out for football, high school level, 32 for volleyball. Games start this week. Tomorrow we have volleyball here versus Hillsborough. We didn't, Coach Thompson put this out, but the ability to live stream, it was tested last week, so we'll make sure it's set up with our school's YouTube page and then getting a link on the school page that was discussed, and that's hopefully the method we can use for football. When I talked with Adam last week, is either Thursday or Friday. Right now we don't have Wi-Fi out there, but he was in communication with whatever companies we typically work with in the past to try to see how we could get Wi-Fi out at the football field to do the same thing. First cross country meet is also tomorrow at River Valley. First varsity football game is the 25th of this month at Hillsborough. First JV football home game is the 28th of this month here. Because we're working with other ADs trying to come up with sports schedules. We're planning a meeting Wednesday to start thinking about winter because everything got pushed back with the start dates for every single season. So all the scheduling we had done for the entire year with refs is now thrown out, and we're all back to square one trying to come up with putting dates on the schedule and coming with officials. So the plan is Wednesday to do that. I had a lot of I couldn't put, but I took off that to get in with the middle school and high school specific section. It's just kind of a, I guess, the general stuff that's been happening. athletics last month since we had the meeting. Questions on?
Any other questions, comments for Mr. Tomey? Okay, seeing none, then we'll go eight, old business, 8.1, discussion possible action on the first 2 weeks of school.
Not really have any action for you, just wanted to let you know it went well. Now the honeymoon's over, so now the kids are starting to take masks off and trade seats on the bus and do things like that. We knew we'd hit that, so I just want to say thank you to all the teachers and paras. We have 4 brand new paras this year, and they're all working really hard, and all the teachers are working hard, and so is admin. So everybody's just really pitching in and doing a great job.
Anything else? Questions, comments? Okay then, 9, new business, 9.1, discussion possible action on mask requirement.
So the governor is ending that ends soon. So I wanted to make sure that you guys knew, like, I think it's at the end of the month, 28th.
I think.
The general consensus from the admin team is that we would like to keep masks, even though the governor is saying they're not required. We'd like to continue to do that. We do feel that it's helping keep everybody healthy. But I wanted to make sure that you guys knew that it's kind of open to
And
debate.
what's Rose's opinion?
Mask.
Okay, yeah, okay.
She gave us a lot of kudos on, we talked earlier tonight about the separation between teachers and classes and how the boards that we have, that this is again, not one that was created, but it's those type of things. She was ecstatic that we had, even with the mask on, so that teachers can work in small group. She thought those were amazing. So we've done a lot to help the kids and help the teachers be able to continue to teach and make it as normal as possible.
Other questions, comments? Do we need a motion?
Definitely wants one.
I think so, because I think our community, if the mask order is lifted, if adults in our community don't feel it's valid and we try to uphold it with the students, you know, and it's a board decision, but I think it needs to be said one way or the other if we're going to continue to follow it or not.
It would make it easier for everybody to be able to say, yes, we really, the recommendation from admin is that we want the masking to continue.
I'll move to accept the recommendation of the administration and to continue with the mask requirement.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded to continue the mask wearing after the statewide mandate is ended. Roll call, please.
I can do it. Mr. Brisboy.
Yes.
Mrs. Variance.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Manning.
No.
Mrs. Peterson.
Yes.
Mrs. Rowe.
No.
Mrs. Blazinski.
Yes.
Motion carries. 9.2 then, discuss and possible action on fall 2020 activities. 9.2.1, fall high school sports, football protocol and football practice.
So I included what Coach Clary and Coach, not Trapon, thank you, sent to me. It's linked here. I gave you guys a copy. This is what you had asked for from the coaches, that this is how they're going to handle the protocol of masking, temperature taking. There's a COVID coach. And from what we can see from practice, there was even a picture in the paper the other day, today, actually, if you want to see yourself. And everybody's talking about football and what they're going to do to keep kids, you know, how the season's going to look. And so that's what you asked for, and that's what Coach gave you.
So the question that I have, and maybe I should have ask it when Zach was giving his athletic director report. What was decided about, I know with volleyball, what was decided about fans, what was decided with football?
Right now, this was last week, it was decided starting September 25th, which is week one. We're on the road the first 2 weeks, so starting September 25th, 4 fans per player for football. And starting in October, 2 fans per player for volleyball. We, as a conference ADs, already have whatever the Google version of Excel is, where we're supposed to have the names of all football players and who are their 4 people. That needs to be in advance, and then we share them with ADs before the game. So there's that master list of who are your 4. You don't have to obviously bring 4, if you have 4, but who are your 4 people that are for each player. And if the kids don't, they fill them, they fill them. If they don't, they don't. But that would start 25th for football, and in October for volleyball.
But it doesn't have to be the same for each week, it could be a different.
Correct.
Right, it can be any 4 they
It
want.
just has to be in advance so we can, when we're on the road, we can send them to people in the school so they know who it is. So we just said we don't want to do tickets. It'd just be easier to have a list to then put a check mark next to the people or highlight them or something, so you're not exchanging anything with the thought process behind having a document that's shared in advance to see who's on the list, and you keep it at 4 in case you want to bring siblings or grandparents or whoever. It wasn't just limited to parents.
And to back it up a little bit, when we met about 3 weeks ago, and you guys, we had talked about it, you had asked Coach Clary to come back with this documentation. At the time, I only knew we were playing 4 different teams. I had not seen that we had kind of joined with 6 Rivers. And so there was all these other teams I had never even heard of because they weren't in our conference. And I was like shocked. And so I point blank told those administrators that I said football would be okay with these 4 teams: basketball, Highland, help me out there, Hillsborough, and Hill. No, Highland. Those are the 4, sorry. And I was flabbergasted. All of a sudden, Peck Argyle was in there, and Luther Olson, which we had mentioned before, but they weren't in my schedule that I had gotten. So I said, I don't even think my board is going to let us play football if we have all these teams from the whole southwestern part of the state. This wasn't what I brought to my board to get okayed. And so you guys okayed something that I didn't present, basically. So because of me, and I feel bad for our commissioner, but he rearranged the schedule so that our first 4 games were with those 4 teams. And then at that point, if the board, again, I said I'll bring it to the board again. If you guys want to support us playing the other teams, we'll continue to do so. But at least the first 4 games were the ones that I had mentioned to this board. I felt horrible about that. Then, when we talked about Ridge and Valley okaying players and visitors, again, I said, when we were in the meeting, Hillsborough couldn't vote because they're not in either one of those conferences. So it was basketball, Highland, and that currently has the same superintendent, and DeSoto was the one I missed. And I'm like, you guys, we said no fans. And again, I said, that's how my board okayed it, that we weren't going to have fans. Then we created another meeting with the 6 Rivers group and the remaining 4 teams so that superintendent group met, and they voted, I was in one dissenting vote, to have fans starting right away in September. Our first 2 games are away games, so it's kind of a moot point that we're not going to have fans here, but I want to let you know that I gave you information that you voted on, and then it completely changed like the next 2 weeks. I tried to stay true to what you guys had okayed, but having said that, now there's people here that all the other 6 Rivers and our conference remaining ones that are left voted, and they are okay with September 25th fans. I said, I don't know if my board's gonna okay that or not, but it's an away game, so kind of a moot point. It's whether or not the Hillsborough team will allow family members. But Hillsborough will abide by your decision.
So it would be like what Zach said, the players would
Yes,
have four,
right. But
and then volleyball, once
October 1st,
October, it would be two.
yes, because it's inside.
And with volleyball, if that happens too, like once JV's done, like we're at home, our JV team, you've got to get out of the field because we're gonna have new people coming in because the indoor numbers are different. So you can't have the parents of JV players can't sit with the JV players at home because we need to. There's gonna be almost like a change. Okay, JV's done, so now you need to leave the gym. So varsity.
So that group of parents would leave unless they have
Yeah, it's
a JV and a
That was
varsity.
what was talked about, yeah, just because then like obviously with us having that many girls, it makes sense, but it would be a lot with multiple parents with 30-some girls.
Is that a home game, Zach, or a away game
Or
for the JV leaving the gym?
There's 4 of
we're
them.
at home, obviously, like if we're on the road, they have to take the bus,
Right.
that would be different. Like the home team, they're supposed to just to get people out of the gym to keep numbers small.
You know, are the other schools gonna do the same thing? Are the home players gonna leave the home?
That was what we have another AD meeting Wednesday, that's what we talked about. The last meeting we had was the day after our board meeting in August, so it's been a couple of weeks. So I don't know if they'll change based off of the meeting that superintendents had last week with our conference commissioner or not.
They're very okay with for some reason, they're okay with volleyball players don't have any fans, but football players have to have them.
Because it's outside. There's a difference, inside versus outside.
But you still gotta be social distance.
Cross country is outside, no, they said no.
They said no
outdoor cross
spectators
country,
at cross
so I don't-
country.
Right. But they did say
Band-Aid on 50 people
4 for cross-country
for indoor.
after October 1st, or after September 30th.
I feel like this was a rush decision for football because they had more time to decide. And volleyball didn't have time to decide. And we're getting the short end of the stick. We can't even allow 8 adults to watch their senior daughters.
Is
For a whole
cheerleading,
game.
is cheerleading part of the,
We don't have a cheerleader.
okay, I just was
That was
asking.
supposed to be brought up. It's, all the teams that have gotten back to me are not having it.
Okay.
No cheerleadership.
That's kind of up in the air.
Managers from the respects to the 4 tickets, is it managers
No, they were separated on there.
or they separate? Well, I'm fine with that.
So why was the October date picked as a suddenly, okay, now we can have volleyball players in here?
It was
Or
kind of
I mean, not players,
arbitrary.
not players, I'm sorry, fans.
Pants, yeah. It was kind of arbitrarily picked because we felt at the time, and again, we started discussing these like 2 months ago, but we felt at the time that if we could even have school until that point, and everybody, if this was working, if all the distancing and masking was working, then we would have exposure minimized if we then started allowing fans too. But we had to get used to this part first, with social distancing and masking. I think that, at least that was my thought.
Okay.
Is there not a mandate on the 50 people indoors? Because that's what I've been hearing, why you
No,
cannot
there
have-
is a mandate on the 50 people indoors, so every single county is different. And, yeah, I know. And North Crawford heard it's not 50 counting the players, it's just 50 in addition to the players.
Ooh, I want to get that.
Total.
Yeah, it's 50 total in our
And
county.
if it's 50 total, we can't even travel with our whole team.
Correct. That's one of the things we've had the discussion on that was brought up. And that's why, my understanding, why volleyball, because it's indoor, because you combine the players and the staff, and you as the coaches, you're gonna be easily pushing the 50 and not exceeding the 50 number. It was my understanding of why there wasn't spectators being allowed indoors, and why, because your numbers that the school has there is high. That's,
So we
That's
feel
a
like
lot.
we're safely distancing our children with masks and stuff, but we can't put families even 12 feet apart in the bleachers?
When there's
I
much,
mean-
much more than 50 people
Yeah,
in the
it's-
school during the day.
I'm just wondering,
I don't see this as really our decision. See, this is a state, I was on the one emergency management meeting today, and it said, that people say, well, it's just a mandate, like people, no, there is a law. This is it may be called a mandate, but there is a law to this.
Okay.
And, but that's why I'm confused when people start talking about, well, we can't allow spectators. Are they doing this matter knowledgeably? Or are they just saying, well, we could do that because we have the decision ability? I don't know if they do. And that's the one thing I have a question on is we start talking, opening up the indoor for the volleyball. And you have to keep that in mind. Absolutely,
Yes.
David.
Because each county set their own and they go 4 to 6 weeks out before they make a change.
So is the 50-person thing going to expire when the mask thing expires? Is that why we're going to allow 2 after October 1st?
I haven't heard.
We haven't heard that.
Is there anything else?
And does the mandate cover during, so football, the players don't count, but during volleyball they do?
Football's outside.
Football's outside. It's a
Yeah.
big-
I understand.
Outdoor
Outside, but
events
it's still not
included in some of the.
That's not our-
outdoor events,
that's not our
graduation,
rationale.
we couldn't
Yeah.
have maximum for graduation.
50-person limit inside, and how we open the school.
You have in the same room.
In the gym. It's the capacity and it's the percentage that you can have.
I mean, we have to know how many kids we have at lunch, don't we?
I don't know how many are in the gym.
The issue is if we
They
have
spread
over
out.
50, we have to put that down. We wouldn't be able to say, okay, we can do it for volleyball, we'd have to change
Well,
that.
and we should be,
Yeah,
yeah. It should
absolutely.
be equitable. I understand that obviously our kids are here for their education. A lot has been taken away from kids. We cannot pick and choose where we follow the rules. It needs to be equitable for all of the kids. I just think we need to keep that in mind.
And here's a question, is there no clause for like different sizes? I mean, this room is one room, if we can put people 6 feet apart in here and go up to 50, but what if we go to the Coliseum? That's one room, but it's so much bigger, is there no clause
It's
for
kind of
that?
based on 50% capacity, kind of.
What is the capacity of our gym, do we know?
I don't know.
900.
I'm sure they do.
It's just shy of 1,000.
Some sort of code.
When you put people, we did the dots on the bleachers, you have to put your butt on a dot, that's my new slogan. There's about 30 on each side. So you can get about 60 individual, but you can group spectators, families together.
And it's all fuzzy, like there's no clear rules about anything.
Since the county, I would like to get the opinion of the county and have Rose, because the county is, according to the state of Wisconsin, the county health department is the one that determines the criteria. Now, there are state mandates.
Yep.
But I'd like to get a clarification on that because for the sake of, for us to be able to make an informed decision, we need to know what the rules are.
And I think it will be the same thing with the masking. The governor is
That's
dropping it, but then it will be by county. And what the county health department mandates is what you have to follow. And I think there's several counties where there's still increases that they're not going to remove that mask.
I hope not. The ones on both sides of us are double what we have.
And Barneville has just closed and gone virtual, haven't they? The school?
I haven't.
Broadhead?
Oh, Broadhead did for 2 weeks, yeah.
So I did ask Rose, do we still have limits for gatherings/events for the number of people? And she said, this was on the 9th, so 10 days ago, 5 days ago. Under phase 2, mass gatherings would allow up to 50 people to gather indoors as long as social distancing can occur. Outdoors, up to 100 persons could gather, again, as long as social distancing could occur. In businesses and public entities such as community centers and libraries, up to 50% capacity of the space could be occupied. If social distancing will not allow 50% capacity, the percentage would need to decrease. All public entities have the choice to open depending on their ability to safely host patrons. And of course, masking is mandated indoors or in enclosed spaces too.
So then, even with the football, giving out 4 is gonna be too many,
According to our county.
according to what the county's saying. If you have 40 players, the other team has 40, there's your 80.
Except for the last clause says that you can make your own decision, as long as you can keep social distancing. Didn't you just read that, that it was?
If social distancing
Have the
will
right to
not
open
allow
it up,
50% capacity.
Then it has to be reduced, right?
Right.
Then it has to be reduced.
The percentage would need to decrease. All public entities have the choice to open depending on their ability to safely host patrons.
Does that mean that whether it's volleyball or football, if we can keep the 2 for volleyball, 4 for football, we think it's safe, does it mean we can do it or not, I guess is.
It still says 50 for the indoor facilities, and that's where it doesn't
100 for
disseminate between
outdoor.
fans or teams. And that's where I don't know how we can go about, I mean, with Julie's team, the school's team, I mean, that number and the other opposing team, I don't know how we can. That's why I think the reason was set for no spectators, because there's no way
We couldn't meet
we,
it with.
we could, you could do it with the site, with the, and they were talking about the referees would count as the number, which it would, it'd be a body within the gym.
I think that's why Lafarge said no fans,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Because their gym is still older and smaller. Yeah, it would be nice if they give us something in black and white.
I'd like to have clarification on the outdoor. I have never heard that on the football, that, oh, it's 100 people. I've not heard that in any of the discussions. That's the first time, that's the first time, Julie, I've ever heard that. And I'm not questioning that. I'm just, I like to, as Linda said, I'd like to have a little more clarification on it. And we have, your first home game is when, Coach?
That's,
We're 9th?
October 9th, our first home
Oh,
game.
okay.
would be before that.
What's that?
They would be September 28th.
Okay. Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
One sideline or one court side considered an area.
That's the question, is some of this, I could, the gym is considered a room, is what it sounds like, to how they're pitching or mandating this, or,
But the size of the room is different than here. That's true.
correct, and that's why, but you still,
Like if you go to Walmart, they have somebody counting
Mhm.
because they can have like 800 or 900 people.
Yeah, 50% of capacity.
Right.
Mhm.
So they count and then they walk out.
yeah, they keep a running tally in
Is
and
the
out.
school, is the school allowed to take a measurement of the gym and figure out their percentage? So that they can.
Well, if it was built for,
I know it's just shy of 1,000 because to host sectional for, I'm not sure if it's for all sports, but for wrestling, we'd had to have 1,000 seats and we're just shy of that. We need another section. So say 900.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're 25% of that
Yeah,
is a possibility.
could be. I think it's something,
25.
because if we make any decision and then the county nurse comes in and says, county health says, we can't do it.
Yeah.
We're done. So maybe it's something that we need to get clarification and have another meeting.
Julie, what's your first game?
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but they didn't talk about tickets
I
until
feel like this
October,
was-
or
we
parents.
We gotta, and we need to make a decision because volleyball is gonna start. Well, we can sit on it for 2 weeks for football.
Well,
So,
that's how the scheduling, yeah, I understand your concern on that.
and I asked Rose the same questions. I got verbatim what Julie got.
Okay. That's-
Literally, I can read it as you were.
I'm sure she's getting,
He's probably reading it to you.
she's got a canned answer,
Mhm.
which she should.
And I felt like my question was specific to spectators and players, and I did not get a specific answer.
Whereas when North Crawford, Brandon asked his county person, and I can't remember what county North Crawford.
It's in
I'm not
Crawford.
trying to leave those out
Crawford
to
County.
rights. I know she's
He
got
was
an
told when he
answer.
pushed that, oh, that doesn't count the players. And I'm like, what? So that's when I asked Rose, what does that mean? How many can we have?
That's on the interpretation of the county health.
Yep.
It
They're
is,
both getting the same document and they're interpreting it two different ways.
but we have to follow what our county person
Correct.
says
For our home games.
for our home game.
But if you're saying 50% of capacity and we have 900 seats, that's 450 people.
You
But
couldn't,
email
you
does
couldn't
say
social
certain-
distance 450 people, 6
but-
feet in the gym.
We
It
don't know
also
how many we
says
can though.
Public
That's
venues
the
such
thing.
as library or community
Per
centers,
side?
it does not specify schools.
Say it again, Julie, sorry.
Businesses and certain public venues such as a library or community center. It does not say schools, it does not say churches. So I
That's
feel like
interesting.
that verbiage was also intentionally,
That needs to be clarified. We're talking about on school grounds.
but it is a community event, but it's not a
No, it's a s-
community center. So
it's a
can we go to
school.
the old gym and play with spectators? I'm kind of not joking.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah, no, that's,
That's
Yeah,
school
they might be
property.
able to have more down there.
But there's less seats down there, or fewer
Yeah.
seats down
can
there.
we rent the Lone Rock Community Center and play down there then?
We'll walk away down, but
They're probably not renting it out, just like the Richland Community Center. Everything's been
For
canceled.
obvious reasons, though, that's another point though. So, opening a can of worms, we're going to counties that are not in Richland to play, who have looser interpretations of what these rules are. Do our parents feel comfortable letting our athletes go there? Because I can think of 2 on my team that don't. And then they're coming back to school and exposing our staff and other students.
And I think that was one of the underlying reasons for no fans to begin with. But Ridge and Valley voted to have no fans at volleyball games, period. So you should be playing in an empty gym here or in any other Ridge and Valley until at least October 1st, from what I heard.
On away games, I'm looking to move this along, but to have the discussion, but on away games, that'd be the one thing I want to clarify is if we can do 4 tickets per person, per athlete, or is it per coaches or just athletes? I mean,
I spoke to Hillsborough because it's their homecoming.
okay,
And what he said to me is what his athletic director told him was for play.
per player.
Yeah, the coaches were not included,
Okay,
so
thanks, Chad.
I'm
Okay.
not sure.
Do we need to get together and talk with Rose and try and get a better interpretation of this? And
She's got to clarify it because, I mean,
I think we could also review the WIA board meetings of control that they had. I'm pretty sure that they spoke about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but it all ultimately boils down to your county.
To your
the
public
county.
health.
Yeah.
Exactly.
'Cause
Yeah,
they're gonna be so-
WIA
WIA can say one
Have
thing, and
precedence.
our county health can come in and just, they're
Just
the
shut
ones
down.
that would, yeah, they're the ones that would come in and do the contact tracing and do ultimately make the decision if we had to shut down on that. So, yeah, we can use those as guidelines and we can use those to back our decisions, but they ultimately would come in and say it's a moot point. Unfortunately, it's not gonna address your game coming up. But can we schedule another meeting for like next Monday? And then we could try and get,
There's a girls' varsity team.
I can't attend it.
That's
I
true.
can, and then I can't be here and
yeah, we
have
don't
a
wanna
meet
do
for my
too.
class.
That's true. That's
Tuesday?
a good point.
We also have a game on Tuesday.
Tuesday.
season started.
Wednesdays and Fridays are open.
Wednesday,
Wednesday, which day?
the 23rd.
I most likely could not because I have a board of directors meeting, but
You
what
want
time
to do
would this be?
16th?
Would this be at 7?
I don't think we can to get it posted in time.
What about this Friday?
And to get a hold of Rose and have her have us.
Yeah,
our
that's the
questions
biggest thing, is
answered.
we wanna make sure we can.
I could,
I mean, it's only Monday. Can we do Friday?
I don't know. I don't know if we can get the answer out of Rose. That's the problem. I don't wanna.
How long do
You have to have 24-hour notice before a board meeting.
Yes, it would be.
Yeah, also I was wondering how long Rose typically takes.
I emailed her today and she apparently had taken a day off, so, I can't,
Okay.
I don't know if it was today.
I would like to give a little more time just in case she's gone or.
That, and we're not her only district, like how are the other districts handling
Absolutely.
her, I mean, obviously they're gonna take her, well, the interpretations to go along with it.
And what she's what you heard on Rich, nice to know that it's getting.
Yeah.
Any indication
Some
of
raise
the
across the board. Exactly
We're
right.
not gonna give her-
SWC conferences.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
Or two fans.
So they're not following county.
But that was their conference decision.
What was that, Chad? I'm sorry, I missed it.
The SWC, which is just like us, a mix of several conferences. Because everybody was supposed to say yes or no by September 1st. That was the reasoning for the last meeting, was just to get a yes or no, then we would participate. So, in the grouping that they're in, they were, their decision by their athletic directors and superintendents was to per player. Stadville, Griffin Center, River Valley, Arlington, Middle Point, Glenville, Parish.
And they're allowing spectators?
Two per
Two per
player.
player.
And then they're gonna relook at it, I think, like what ours did was October 1st was a new situation. But that's how they were gonna start.
Okay.
I'm one of the moms, but I also work in the public health office, so I get it. It's very difficult, and Rose's job is, she's actually my supervisor. So, and she has a super difficult job. She is actually out of the office Thursday and Friday, so if you wanted to attend the meeting, she wouldn't be able to this Thursday and Friday.
Okay.
So I just
So
wanted to.
we're kind of looking at the 23rd then.
23rd.
Wednesday, the 23rd.
So later when we get to setting meeting dates, and that is the 23rd though, workable for those that want to.
I wouldn't be able to attend, but maybe I'll just speak my piece now. I teach religious education, so I can't come on a Wednesday. But I guess I understand the need to limit spectators. You know, we gotta follow whatever rules they set forth. I don't necessarily agree with what the SWC has done, limiting 2 spectators per player, because there's a lot of non-traditional families out there. We have stepmoms, stepdads, and if you're limiting 2 spectators per player, you're eliminating those parents, even though they're just stepmoms, stepdads. And I guess the other point is that I do feel the siblings should be able to come to the games, and otherwise a parent has to decide who gets to come, who has to stay home with the kids. It's certainly not ideal, but none of this is ideal. So I guess if we're going to limit spectators, I agree with what's already been decided, the 4 spectators per player, because then you can at least hopefully pick up the stepdads, stepmoms, siblings, grandparents, and like Mr. Tomei said, is that it doesn't have to be the same 4 people for every game of the season, so that at least there's an opportunity for the people that want to see games to be able to see games. And I mean, that's the gist of what I wanted to say for when you decide next week.
And one thing we appreciate, one thing that would be noted too is, this could change in other counties. We could agree to this, and we could find out that, we're gonna go play so-and-so, and their county has a different rule, and we let 4 in here, and you go to someplace else, and they may not let any or let 2 in, their county, as things change. So everybody realize that what we say and do isn't set in stone. The county health committee could change those things. So later when we get to setting meeting dates, we'll discuss the date and that, but we'll try and get clarification, talk to Rose. and try and get a better, so if you have specific questions or things that you want addressed, please get them to Julie or I or whatever, and then we can make sure we ask those things, you know, like, you know, what have they recommended to other schools or square footage or things like that. Please get them to us so that way we can make sure we can get those specifically answered if we can get an answer from them. So that way we can, you know, make an informed decision then on the 23rd. You know, if we have all those questions, if we have 5 or 6 questions might pop up, you know, even up till, you know, it sounds like she's probably gone to the end of the week, so probably next week or something, we'll try and get a hold of her early in the week. So if you think of things over time, try and get them to us so that way we can hopefully have most of those answered.
Steve, he wanted to, this gentleman wanted to speak. I'd like to hear what his comments.
I mean, I support the four fan per player, and I feel for the volleyball players. You know, it'd be great if they could play outside in the grass and the football field. To limit us to 2, I agree with Shelley. I mean, you get non-traditional families.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is we're outdoors. You know, it's not an enclosed environment. I guess the other option, Chad, is if would you be willing to travel? We'll go away games, all, you know, to be able to have your fans follow you.
Well, I think, just like they're saying, we're stuck by what their county says, so.
Right.
Yeah, so you could even agree to go to all away games and then that, you could have a spike in that county and they could limit it to 0.
Yeah. We could have-
You just don't know. Yeah.
And what Zach said was that this is what was kind of decided at the athletic directors, correct?
Mhm.
No, not the 4 and the 2? Okay,
We haven't had a meeting since August.
okay.
So where did the 4 and the 2 come
The
from?
initial AD plan was last meeting we talked about was let's try to get events, just get everything figured out because it's gonna be way different. And then once we feel comfortable with having a few volleyball, a few football, let's revisit it in September at the end after we played a few and then figure out how we can make tweaks to it. And then
So where did the 4 come from?
superintendent meeting.
Oh, the superintendents, okay.
Yeah. They voted on the 4.
2 is Rich and Science.
Yep. To the restrictions.
I was the one dissenting vote.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about then, we're good on football and volleyball as far as spectators and stuff like that. We really no action now, but hopefully get those
Appreciate
answered.
the protocol.
Yeah, now
That
let's
you
move on to
coaches for that.
protocol.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I would say good work on this. This is, you know, did a nice job putting all this together and laying these things out. And I commend you on that. Anybody, any questions or comments or things? Chad, do you guys want to, or Mr. Klein, do you guys want to get highlights or areas of concern or?
I think our areas of concern are gonna come later in your meeting here. With, I think you're gonna talk about video. If we're gonna be limited to 4 things, which is, I understand, but we're gonna need to be able to be guaranteed that the games are online. And we have video systems that are pretty nice with an end zone camera and our sideline. I was able to speak to Mark. I can wait until you get to this.
Yeah,
So-
I was talking more about on the protocols and things like that. If there's any things, I mean, you're feeling comfortable, you know, you guys have got a weekend.
Yeah. I
And you're
think
feeling
we're
pretty comfortable with stuff?
Our situation, the kids are doing a good job of what they're supposed to do as far as the warm-ups, and I don't know if you've seen it, but they're spread all the way along the fence, 6 feet apart, doing their stretching, and then we get into the drills. David and Jason Rowe are doing a good job of, we have 3 groups each that get their temperature taken when they're coming down, so that they're spread out. And then, one group goes in the back of the shed, another group goes in the front, so they can get their stuff on. Tonight was the first night of full pads, so it took a little longer, but yeah. So when a group goes in at the back, all of them go in together, come out together, then the next one goes. It's working fine. It's just different, but different times. I don't think, I think Frank's did an outstanding job of getting us stuff for cleaning, hand sanitizer, so happy with that. too. He's been very good.
Any other questions, comments? Ms. Thompson, how's it volleyball?
Sorry, just put food in. I think really good. You know, we had some time during the summer to kind of get used to it. So I don't feel like when we actually got into full swing, we had about half of our girls at some point over the summer. So I think when we got into full swing of things and everybody showed up, you know, things weren't optional. And the ones that were present during the summer were already used to it. So it really helped kind of keep that flow going. I didn't hear any complaints. There's a couple of girls that I feel like have legitimate medical concerns. So we're keeping close eyes on those, and they've been good. Their parents have been good communicating those needs. And we talked with the other coaches in the conference to establish a good workable protocol for getting players here, getting them out the door, limiting exposure while they're here. I know for parents, that's the biggest concern, is we're exposing ourselves to other communities. We're in a little hub here in Richland County. For whatever reason, our numbers are lower, whether it's because we're not testing or we just are healthier, but you know, it's a concern for parents to travel outside of our community. So we'll see what road games are like.
Any other question? Administration?
The only thing I guess I had to bring up, even though it's not a volleyball or football thing, I thought kind of in the high school sports, all the ADs that I've heard back from are not doing cheer. I've been in contact with coach a year ago, and she had hesitation and didn't know of any interest, and I have not heard of any interest. And like I said, half of the current 8-game schedule that got back to me, none of them are having it this year just because of what's happening, especially when you're having limitations on, probably I'm guessing the same thing, people at events and bring. They didn't give rationale, just like that the only who's having it, and it's always no one said they're having it. Doesn't mean we can't, but just I thought they kind of fit under for the discussion of possible high school sports, how we wanted to go about doing that. Obviously, if we end up having no fans, period, well then that would be no cheerleaders, but like I said, no other teams are doing it this year.
We haven't had interest though either.
No one's contacted me or the coach either, so no.
Kind of a moot point then, right?
I just was, I thought I'd bring it up.
Okay.
I'd like to just compliment Coach Clary and David and Zach and Julie on how they've been going about this process, spending a lot of time meeting and following all the protocols that we're finding out. And, you know, this wasn't something that coaches were really used to doing. I think they've all done a really good job on it. That's evidenced by the stuff that you're looking at now.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, then we will move on to 9.2.2 fall middle school sports.
All right, so I can just go with a couple things here. First, we'll say if we have fall. Right now, we have a fall middle school schedule for volleyball. Games will start in October, be done in October, which will then push back the traditional winter, we'll call it winter start date for boys basketball, or whatever, winter. Everything will get pushed back. We can technically start practice this month. 2 coaches who coached a year ago are willing to coach again, and there is a schedule. So that's volleyball, and it's a little bit easier to handle with lack of, the only thing we really haven't totally looked at yet, which we may have to switch the start times around if we don't have any sub bus drivers, so they can't leave this school until 4:30, probably the earliest. So there might be some dates we might not be going to DeSoto on midweek. That just might not happen this year. I want to send the team out at 4:30 to start at 6:30, 7 o'clock for middle school during the week. But we did create a schedule for that middle school volleyball. Football, we had some applicants for coaches. Right now, the only 2 teams that I know that we could play are DeSoto and Potosi. And I just talked about far road trips and not being able to leave because everybody else around us is going to either no football or spring football. And we do have that option. I was just kind of doing getting notes ready for how it could possibly work. All spring high school sports will start April 19th for varsity, which obviously is new. Usually it starts mid-March. So that's now in April. If we were doing fall high school football, we would start in March. Volleyball will actually start in February. So the notes kind of thinking how we could make it work would be middle school football would start March 30th. If we push that to the fall, which is a Monday, I mean, obviously weather dependent, but maybe it was kind of sloppy. Nobody's using the old gym and nobody would be using this gym. So there might be some options for indoors if we decided to go that route. I thought we first game April 8th or 9th, finished the season at the end of the month. There'd be about a 2-week, 10-day overlap. Teams that are doing spring football at the middle school level, Hillsborough, Riverdale, Wazeeka, Seneca, Wyandotte, Western, North Crawford, Kickapoo, Bostonville are all doing spring middle school as of today. Obviously, that's all dependent on numbers and COVID and how things go in the spring. So it is an option for middle school. We can still go through with the fall one. It's just like there are 2 teams that I know that are somewhat close to us that we can play. I just don't. And if you wanted to have middle school volleyball be in the spring, it was kind of along the same lines. I thought we could start middle school track would start when high school does, in my opinion, which would be mid-April, so you could do volleyball starting at the end of February and going through March potentially, or something along those lines. So you could still, still kind of make it work if we were able to have middle school basketball, girls basketball, and wrestling right after Christmas. You could kind of throw that in there too as possibilities. But if there's any thoughts or questions.
So with the middle school volleyball though, there would be more teams this fall?
Right,
It's
right,
more the
yeah.
football
only
that
ones
they'd
in,
only
like, in our
have 2?
typical conference, the only ones not playing are Seneca because they moved everything to spring, and Wazeeka doesn't sound like they will be playing middle school sports, period, in the spring, or in the fall, sorry. But yeah, DeSoto, Lafarge, Kickapoo, Crawford, Weston, Richland Center are all still willing to play us, and part of our schedule for that October, all the games in October. It would just go like a week or so longer than was typical. Roughly the same amount of games, they're just more, they're just all in October instead of some in September, some in October. So yeah, there is a schedule to run that season. It's just the dates will be a little bit different than normal, obviously, because normally they'd be going.
Are we doing anything as far as in the old gym with?
Yeah, last I heard Mrs. Niemeyer was.
Mrs. Niemeyer is using it for choir.
How does that look? Does she have stuff spread all over, or would it be easy to use it for both purposes?
It's wide open. She has a few,
There's a speaker next to the side door. So
Okay.
pretty much it.
Yeah, she's not using risers or anything.
Okay.
Just using to spread it out.
This is a contradictory statement for my position as a coach, but if we are cohorting middle schoolers, we are not cohorting when we play volleyball. Just throwing that out
I would really appreciate it if we could either delay middle school sports or just not have them. I prefer delay versus cancel. But right now, the middle schoolers are all cohorted. They never intermingle. And if we do this, then it's all out the window.
And I just want to say too, when we get closed for 2 weeks, sports is done regardless of how far in the season we are. So, you know, I watch the NFL, I don't ever watch them. The stadium was empty yesterday. And we're thinking about bringing kids together.
So the recommendation by administration would be to delay middle school sports till the spring.
Yep.
And it kind of sounds like we would be doing that for football anyway, otherwise they
Nobody to
really
play.
don't have anybody to play.
my 2 cents on that would be to go with the spring as well, because if we're following protocols, the shed is already set up for them. It'd be a nice transition for them to do the same thing if we're still in procedures that we're in. Plus, the Riverdale's close, Hillsborough's close, there's chances with the scenic bluffs, other scenic bluffs too. I would love to play DeSoto every week, but it's quite a trip. And so is Potosi, so just travel wise, it'd be a lot smarter probably in the spring.
And we talked to like the middle school, and typically they don't kick, but we don't need to have both goal posts in. So the one that's in the baseball field would just stay out. And if some middle school team actually has a kicker, you would just use that one goal post on the far end. And there'd only be a couple weeks. I did talk with, and during that overlap, I did talk with Coach Lorenz because I used the field for track practice. She said we can make it work, and obviously, like, I would schedule around. My thought in my head would be we would try to play in that overlap time period, because if they don't start practice till the 19th, they wouldn't have games or meets because there's the number of practices. So we would really have until like the week after the 19th, the 25th, 26th, until they could start playing games, which would be about when I want to end the season anyway. Because if you start practice at the end of March and have a game a week, that'd be 4 to 5 games, all games in April. So there really wouldn't be any overlapping. There would be some practices, but there wouldn't be like having a middle school game and our track doesn't have a good spot to practice, and baseball doesn't really either. And we could obviously take, my thought would have been the same thing towards that time period too, if we would go that route, try to get road games towards the end of the year once. Because some of those teams, like Riverdale doesn't share a football field, baseball field, it's one of those schools, so they don't have to worry about that same thing that we do. We have the field getting multiple usage, so there are more players, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 area schools, and I guarantee they don't have schedules filled already because they're in the same boat we are. They're trying to get bigger all sports now before they start moving into the season. So,
is this an all or none decision then? Because then what would spring volleyball look like for middle schoolers? If this is a football separate from a volleyball decision, we already have a schedule. I realize I'm contradicting and I get that, but so we already have a schedule for a middle school volleyball season. If we go to spring and we only have one team to play, then we're in the same position middle school football is in.
Zach, who's
I've got off right now that I know of. Because my thought for the schedule for middle school, it would be start in March and be done sometime in April.
But would we have any teams?
And I know of Riverdale, Seneca, and Hillsborough right now. Which, yeah, I mean, if you did home and homes, that'd be 6. Right now, they're going to have 7 on the schedule. They're playing everybody once. If those schools, and everybody in the scenic bluffs besides Hillsborough is going to spring. So I haven't contacted Lisbon, Royal, Cashton, Wine Walk. So there
are lots of options for the
right.
spring.
That whole conference besides Hillsborough is going to spring for everything. So, and I'm not sure if anybody south of us.
I would just also like to point out, sorry for pointing out all the potential holes, but with all these teams traveling in the spring, the busing situation could be an increased problem.
For the two middle school, with how I have the dates, the only sports that will be playing would be middle school volleyball and football. The spring hasn't started yet, and we're keeping varsity right now because varsity's not going to that new alternative.
So the varsity sports that would be starting would be practice only at that time.
Starting practice April 19th.
Because I would hate to put all this work into a potential
Right,
schedule, and then we have no drivers and we can't get there.
Yeah, the varsity sports would be April 19th, and I would want to be done before they would start games, and they're the only thing playing games then because the winter sports and what am I looking at? Basketball's done February 22nd, boys is March 1st, wrestling is February 15th, so there shouldn't be anything going on. And I would still think that if we have middle school wrestling and middle school girls basketball, it would still start in January, like it's been typical, and then be done in February. So then that starting volleyball, football the last week of March into April wouldn't be anything. So the only thing that could be honestly a problem, but we'll see when the start dates this meeting is. I'm not sure what their launch date is. basketball since we're on that. Typically started in October, but for everybody having volleyball, they're playing volleyball till the end of October, so it wasn't gonna start in October anyway. I don't know if they're gonna start in November because, so we gotta talk about the winter sports yet, because we're trying to hash out.
Might be an abbreviated season, like.
I would imagine it'd be about a 1 month season probably too. I would say that the rest of the league, I'd say at best, they're not gonna start till November. But
Any other questions, comments? Motion?
I would make a motion that we move the middle school football and volleyball to the spring.
Motion by Mr. Peterson to move middle school football and volleyball to the spring. Is there a second?
A second.
By Ms. Behrens. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Blazinski,
Yes.
Mr. Brisboy,
Yes.
Mrs. Varian, Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Manning,
yes.
Mrs. Peterson,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Okay, then, 923 then, Ithaca Fair.
The fair committee has been meeting several times to try to come down with a plan. I want to make sure everybody gets one, and I'll start reading it. The school board is in favor of what we're proposing. We will be giving this to the Observer and the radio so that everybody knows what's going on. Ithaca School Fair Committee and School District have decided to move forward with the 98th Annual Ithaca Fair this year. There will be no change to the in-person livestock show and auction. However, exhibitors will be asked to show their non-animal projects virtually through fairentry.com. Exhibitors will be able to enter and upload digital photos in the format blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. And so they're creations for a judge to be reviewed. Premiums will still be awarded to all entries, all classes, except for the Ithaca Fair Horse Show must be entered into fairentry.com by Wednesday, September 23rd at 11:59 p.m. The livestock show will still be held in person with commencing at 8:30, weigh-ins are 7:30. On Saturday, October 3rd, the Little Britches Show will start at 9:30. The meat, animal, butter, and cheese auction will be beginning at 10 a.m. The school premium book can be found on Ithaca Fair and Ithaca School District Facebook pages and on the school website. The Ithaca Fair Horse Show will also be held in person on Sunday, October 11th, starting at 10:30 at the Anderson Farm Quarter Horse Farm location, Saxonville. See the Ithaca Fair and Ithaca School District Facebook pages and the website for the show bill. The annual Ithaca Foundation Big Block Challenge race will also still be held, but will be a little different this year. Like many races across the state during the pandemic, you can do the 1 mile fun walk, 5K run, or 10-mile bike option whenever and wherever you want. Cost is $15 per participant with a maximum of $45 per family and 3 t-shirt maximum. All participants will be entering into a raffle one time for registering, and you may purchase extra raffle prize tickets for $2 each. So there will be no race in the morning of the Ithaca Fair, but we will still want to safely encourage our community to get out there and be active as a family, all while supporting the Ithaca School Foundation. Check the Ithaca School website or Ithaca Fair or Ithaca School District Facebook pages for details on pre-registration by September 30th. The parade, children activities, and food stands have been canceled this year. There's also no Saturday football game on October 3rd. All livestock show participants and spectators will be required to wear masks while on school grounds for health and safety of our community. Ithaca Fair Committee would like to thank the many people and businesses that through their generosity, support, and donations make our fair an annual success. We also thank all judges, volunteers, and bidders and buyers at the auctions, as well as our trophy and rosette supporters. Any questions about the fair can be directed to Mr. Jim Fabro at 585-2311 or via email. Any questions?
I would, the question would be the very first part, that if we have that protocol for football, I would say there's gonna be that protocol for the animal show. I mean, if public health says this is how many people we can have outdoors. So that to me would be, and the same with the horse fair. So maybe it can just be the participants and then their 2 people or whatever, because, it is that's not on school grounds, but
it's sponsored by schools. So
Right.
they'll follow rules.
yeah, so that would be the only thing, and that would be another thing when we're talking to Rose.
It'd be the same event on there, so that could fall under those, it would fall under those same rules.
I mean, it might have to be stretched out,
And that is why we discontinued the exhibits inside the gym. For one thing, if they were in the gyms would have to be disinfectant. We could only allow so many people in there, and that's why the exhibits are virtual.
On an average for the animal and the livestock, how many participant kids roughly?
The larger livestock, you wouldn't have a problem at all. We would have to watch the rabbits show would be one of the big things. And you've helped, Kathleen.
Yeah, they're very tight.
Yeah. And so we would have to spread it out as much as we could. And we could take over more. We had to the parking area because parking area is not going to be used as much because of the fact that there isn't going to be a lot of people there, guys. And the other thing is we decided, and if it's okay with the school, we will need the use of the bathrooms up by the football field. And that way, if we open those bathrooms up, we wouldn't open up any part of any of the schools' parts. The only part we might have to use would be access for use of the computer. If we can't get wireless down there, somebody might, it'd only be 2 people in the gym in order to use a computer.
We have wireless
Yeah, it's got
access
wireless.
outside.
Is it outside?
All the
And
way
I-
over to that basketball.
I
court.
told them that we could very easily, we have some portable printers, we could set one down in there, get them hooked up on their computers, and they'd have it accessible for the day. Very easily fixed.
Big thing would be whether you'd have people bidding on, I mean, if you have someone showing and they can only have 2 people show up for that, spectators, are you gonna be able to have enough buyers?
You could always do it on phone or online,
Well, that's true.
a lot of
I
options.
think that's what they're doing with quite a few.
Saturday. What did they do this Saturday?
They had some people in person. I was
Yeah.
just curious, I saw pictures of.
They had people in person, but they also
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
online.
They had a phone
Aspect
number
as well.
that you could call in and bid.
And a lot of actual real life auctions that,
That's
when there isn't a
Oh, yeah.
pandemic, there's a lot of things that are bought on phone. So, it takes a little more, some people contacting those people and saying, hey, this is gonna be the time, or leave a bid, and
And you can do that too ahead of time easily, leave a bid.
Sure.
They'll go so high on a certain animal. And the announcers who are doing the auction can announce that too.
So are they gonna take virtual pictures to post so that people know what they're bidding on?
I suppose.
I mean, I gotta get on how that looks,
Well, no, in this situation, a lot of it's the family.
I know, but there's a lot of businesses that support clients.
yeah.
Clients' kids.
Yeah.
And I don't
Clients'
think it's not so much what they're bidding on, it's the support.
Right.
It's no, if my kids, walk a cow through, take a picture. I mean, they were either an FFA or 4-H and they had to take a picture and submit it by deadline. Put together a online auction.
Yeah, they're probably practicing walking it,
I hope so.
Okay, so what you're recommending to us is to virtually take pictures of it. Oh, geez. We don't know the sale bill till that day.
Correct. I just like to get clarification.
How many people could be down there?
Rows, yes. How many people in-person people?
Yep.
Can, spectators, et cetera, can be there. I'm assuming social distancing, masks, whether it's required, you know, whatever, we can have the discussion. I mean, but.
I do know they had to sign a waiver
True,
at
that's right.
the livestock show they just had.
Yeah, that was slides then.
But there were quite a few people in person.
It was. I saw that.
But yet we're not having volleyball parents. I mean, we just gotta keep in mind,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
talking about, this is like the third, correct?
Yes.
I mean, I've been down at that, I've helped with that down below. There's a lot of people and it's tight.
It is.
I don't care if we're
Yeah.
outside, it's tight. And I just.
I really wonder how many are gonna be exhibiting this year.
You know, with not having the football game and not having the other
You don't have
activities.
a parade. you don't
That's
have
what a lot
football.
of, there was a lot of mingling with that to go see the critters.
It'd be the same thing, you have to sign up by a certain time, so you know how many, you know, are gonna be exhibiting.
Oh, sure.
So you'd have a potential
They should have a
number.
sale bill before.
She does.
No,
Well,
well,
yeah, that's true. That's been, yeah.
That's been an
That's-
issue
that's
every
been-
year.
Yeah, it is. Because I have to say my kids got on late. We requested, and sometimes I didn't get put down.
Maybe this year there isn't, because we gotta know how many.
Yeah.
I wish Jim was here. Okay.
He's not, I looked, he's not
So,
online.
sale bill ahead of time, pictures of animals for sale. Number of people that can be allowed, right?
Well, we
Yes,
would-
but
we would
that's-
say-
That
That's
would be
possible.
from,
we would
I
just say
understand
Number of people participating,
Yeah.
so we'd have an idea if
At
it's
least
gonna.
participants, yeah.
Number of exhibitors.
Yep.
Which we're not gonna know until September
23rd.
23rd. No,
Yes.
So that's when we're gonna have our meeting, so
okay,
that'll work out pretty good.
okay.
Mhm.
We would know September 23rd, the number of exhibitors, because they have to
But the
have it.
deadline is at what, 9/11?
Could we set the small animals up away from the large animals?
It always is that way. The
Yeah,
large
yeah.
animals are over
Well, like
this
way
way.
apart, like put the small animals in the football field. And
those are Emmett's loose.
well, I'm just saying,
Or up above.
up above. I mean, if we literally, separate them.
Softball field? Could you put stuff up
We
there?
could, but that's pretty
The
far.
problem with putting stuff that far up, up here, you're splitting families.
We could put on.
Because you got
the
some
edge of the
families that are
football
gonna
field.
be showing different animals and different
Like
things.
up above the buses.
Yeah.
We'll have to
Sure,
talk
they
to
can be
Jim.
spread out.
With the buses away.
If not,
We always move the
Maybe-
buses up.
maybe the whole parking lot could be used and people would have to park and walk a little bit.
Yeah.
They could do that 5K.
There you go.
Keep their steps in.
Yeah, they could count that as part of their.
Okay.
This is a discussion of allowing parents, for safety, River Valley had an animal they had to put down because one got loose. It's a lot to ask.
Yeah.
Even high school exhibitors to be in charge of enormous animals.
Well, I think we'll get a lot more clarification on that, what our
I
outdoor
just
numbers are
wanted
gonna be.
clarification, so
Yeah.
if my children want to attend,
Yeah.
we don't have an 11-year-old showing up at the steer alone.
Oh, that's not gonna happen. One, the steer's too expensive that the parent or whoever owns that animal is gonna be with that steer. would
But I
think.
want to make clarification, so if we're saying exhibitors can come, I think it should be assumed that adults
One
are
year.
It's
allowed.
gonna come.
I want to protect the fair and the kids, so
Yeah.
that we aren't discussing, okay, well, then your dad can't come because we're over the limit.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Julie, can you hear me? It's Jill Plonka.
Yep.
Can I run this article that Annette just read? Can we run it in the Observer this week? Because if we wait till next week, we're going to be past the deadline of entering.
I'm fine with it. I would move to approve this as presented.
Okay.
It's okay to put it on the radio as is? And then we'll figure out the numbers and
Just
work
tell
it
them,
out.
just tell them to pay attention to for updates from the Ithaca School District via their website or communications.
You get that, Jill?
Can do.
Thank you.
So it's been moved by Mr. Brisbois to approve this as presented by the prayer committee. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Second. Mrs. Bryant, roll call, please.
Mr. Brisboy.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferriant.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Manning.
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson.
Yes.
Mrs. Rowe.
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski. Yes.
Okay, that takes care of the fair.
Thanks, Annette.
And then 924 Ithaca Homecoming.
So because the homecoming game is not that night, and we don't have a home football game, our first home football game is October 9th, and it's a Friday night. The suggestion is because of COVID, we're separating fair and homecoming. So we will do homecoming. There's actually a home volleyball game that week that we will do something to promote, even if we can't, we don't know for sure if we can attend or not, but same thing with the football game. We'll promote that. We'll do it in-house more, so they all pick their days, wear a t-shirt this day, wear pajamas that day, they do all that stuff. Culminating in that Friday, maybe we'll have a only high school and middle school early release so that they can have the games in a socially distant manner. Again, the teachers are all gonna work on that. And then everybody goes to the game that night if we're allowed, and that's homecoming. I really can't recommend that we have a dance. I really don't know how you have a dance. And socially, we couldn't get all the kids in the cafeteria or gym. And you can't, I mean, you just can't. It would be a nightmare. But the teachers are okay with the plan with no dance also. It's a switch, and it would be nice for the parents to know, because then they don't spend money on the dresses.
I would say that we're talking about a junior class who didn't have their prom either. Not that I'm saying we can do a homecoming dance, if we can't right this month, right now. But there's a group of kids that are getting a lot of stuff taken away. And maybe it's not important to everybody, but it's important to some of them.
Yeah.
And when I was talking about mental well-being as well. So I'm not saying that we can do anything about it, but we need to be sensitive to it. And if things open up and we can revisit it later, that would be fantastic, at least.
It would be.
You know, so the kids know that we're not saying, no, you can't do that, we don't. But we're also saying, well, we can't do it right now. But we
So
can
it's postponed, not canceled.
Exactly.
There are colleges that do spring homecomings. It's not unheard of to do something like that.
I'm just thinking about that. I mean, I know I have a kid in that class, but that's a lot of stuff to not, you know. There's already dresses that have been bought for some occasions. So,
When they're on sale, you get them when you can.
So is any more discussion on the in-school activities and what administration has presented as far as those type of things?
Julie, what is the home volleyball game that week?
Thursday, October 8th.
Julie, your voice changes.
So there's Friday or Saturday would be the fair, and then the next week would have stuff.
Thursday would,
Volleyball, Friday football, Sunday workshop.
yeah.
And hopefully we get proper clarification where fans can go 2 indoor, 4 outdoors, so that can be an option. It's a little for the month of October. If Rose tells us the right information to make those happen with that week too.
Do we need a vote
And postpone the dance.
and postpone the dance?
Yeah, make sure that that's in there, that it's not just totally.
So is there a motion to accept the presentation or what was presented by administration for Ithaca homecoming and delay the dance till possible future date?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Ms. Peterson, roll call, please.
Sorry.
That's all right, I'll read them. Mrs. Ferriant.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Manning.
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson.
Yes.
Mrs. Rowe?
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski?
Yes.
Mr. Brisboy?
Yes.
Yeah. 9.3, discussion possible action on bills and balances. So we had total receipts of $1,083,525.39. Total disbursements of $948,344.98.
I'll make that motion.
And moved by Ms. Blazinski to accept bills and balances as presented.
I'll second it.
And by Mr. Peterson, roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Manning.
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson.
Yes.
Mrs. Rowe.
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski.
Yes.
Mrs. Herring.
Yes.
Okay, then 9.4 was already
Mr.
addressed.
Brisboy,
Yes.
sorry.
We're speeding things up.
Yeah, I think so.
Right.
Sure. 9.4 we've already addressed, right?
Yep.
Yep.
9.5 then discussion possible action on accepting alternate open enrollment.
So I have a stack of alternate open enrollments. Some are in, some are out. Now I can't find my little list. Here you go. In are a 5K and a third grader from RC, and out are a 4, 3, 5, 9, and eighth grader to RC. I don't believe that they ever were in our district. I think they moved from Richmond into our district and just want to continue to go.
Do them all in one. Okay. Is there a motion by Mr. Manning to accept open enrollments in and out? Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Brisboy's. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. 9.6, discussion possible action on accepting donation from Ryan Jones of flags to cross the road and Shriver's for gloves.
Shriver's donated 2 boxes of gloves, 1 large, 1 extra large. Right now, gloves are going for, they're like hotcakes. They're 4 times what they cost 6 months ago.
Everything is.
And the Jones family, they put the things on the, so the kids can wave the flag so they can be seen because they drive.
We have walkers now.
When we cross Highway 58, you can see those.
Yeah, it's really nice.
We're
So
all appreciative.
very appreciated.
I would move to accept the donations from Ryan Jones for the flags and from Schreiber Foods for the gloves.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Row, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? 9.7, discussion on guaranteed sub.
So I don't remember if we ever had a guaranteed sub, but this year is going to be very, very iffy if we're going to even be able to get subs. We've already had somebody calling, a couple people calling sick, and we've had to cover. People don't want to sub for obvious reasons. So if we had a guaranteed sub, that person could be used every day. It would be an added expense, but I just wanted to at least bring it up for discussion. And then we'd want to know, I didn't even mention it to share because I don't have a costing or anything, but if you guys are totally against it, then I don't want to move ahead with even the costing. But
You have a name in mind or no?
We have 3 subs right now that have been trained because there are maternity subs, so I would anticipate one of them possibly. But, you know, like I said, we have, I think 7 on the list. 3 of them are already in the building, so. Once things start happening, it's gonna be harder to get, and this way, that person would always come to Ithaca regardless.
Well, it used to be, I remember my previous time on the board, that guaranteed sub would not take any other calls. So it wasn't necessarily that you paid them every day, but they got a higher rate of pay.
And they were called, right, so they had a certain time that if they.
They
were
had to
not-
be called by, it was 7, I believe.
And then after 7, they could take a
They could
different
take a different
position.
job.
And we did have that. I think we had 2 of them for a couple of years.
And their pay was, I don't know, was it share like $20 or $25 more for
I
that
wanna say
day?
At the time, it was $115, but our regular one was 90.
90, yeah.
So that's kind of.
So it was 25, and so it wasn't that they had to be here every day. But you had that, and most people, if they're sick, they call before 7, correct?
5
Not-
o'clock
not
is what I
always.
want to hear that phone ring, because it sometimes takes me an hour to find people.
Yeah.
She's the only one that wants the phone to ring at 5.
I don't want to walk in and have to find some.
So you're just wanting direction,
Yeah.
are okay to pursue it and see what bring back costs?
Yeah.
Well, everybody okay with them pursuing that, bringing that back?
Yes.
We don't think we need a vote or anything, we just give you the direction to
Yep.
pursue that.
And then we'll probably come back next month with a name, since you guys are okay with it. Super.
All right, any other questions, comments? Okay, 9.8 then, discussion possible action on live streaming events, 9.81, total startup cost.
So I asked Adam to just give us the option. So for volleyball, we know we have the ability to take perhaps this camera, put it out, we can live stream it, that's all set up, we're good to go. For football, in the broadcast booth, I probably should have printed these for you, I'm sorry.
You have it, I can.
We need a new electrical outlet, $100, $150, depending on the materials. An HP Pro Curve switch to control the network is $210. Meraki wireless device inside the booth and the license is $790. Outside wireless access is $1,200 for the Meraki. And then install point-to-point system from school to the booth is $1,800 from Strings. So it's $4,215 with the optional outside access point and $30,15 without the optional access point.
And what's the optional outside access point?
That's like we have for the, like we have outside access points.
But what-
That summer.
I know, but what is that? What is that? What does that give us? I mean, optional, do we need it?
I think Adam's thinking with having these optional access points was that there are going to be other opportunities for us to be using these things for like the school fair or graduation. We have these access points at the community gym. I'm just listening to conversations he's had and my opinion on how it could also be used. He already has access point at baseball. So if we're talking about things like equity, we can provide these things for other opportunities that are not just sports. And by providing it that way, it could also allow community events. If there are community members who pay taxes that would like to utilize some of these buildings for different things, it gives us more flexibility. We'd like to promote some of these as community availability options, not just for students and education.
That COVID money's gotta be close to being done. Yeah, but we
But we
got
had spent
got
already
extra
over
staff.
40 at the last
Got
board
extra
meeting.
staff.
Just was asking.
Yeah.
I know we have $10,000 or $12,000 in iPads or whatever it is for elementary still coming in. It's coming out of COVID money.
And then you can see that there's charge for the camera to do this other $2,000 a year. Unless you want to charge everybody $3 to watch the game, that kind of a thing, then it's cheaper.
So what were the ongoing costs?
It's $2,000 a year as an ongoing cost.
Okay, I don't think it's-
So you're saying you have to use a camera that's provided by the service instead of one we already have?
That I don't know.
We have an end zone camera that's pretty nice.
That'd be an option to use instead of using this.
That would be an Adam question.
I don't know.
whether it's
Yeah.
I tried to get a hold of him and haven't heard back, but my thought to him was if we could use, I have my own personal iPad that they use the end zone camera. And then we also video from the sideline, and that's the video that we send to the next team. Because we do do have to send your last 2 games to every week you send your last 2 games. So I didn't know if that was something that, because I didn't see this.
I can't speak for your camera, Chad, but I do know Adam and I tested my own personal iPad to be able to live stream. So YouTube, to cut back on YouTubers, considers an iPad a mobile device. And so you have to get a minimum of 1,000 followers, and you need to be an active YouTube station channel, and that there's some restrictions on that too. Because that's what we were gonna use, was my own personal iPad for the volleyball games, and it didn't work.
Well, and
And that was
Chad,
Adam, not me.
it would be awesome for football to be able to use those cameras. And if they're compatible, that would be great, but I think for this package, if we're gonna sell it as something that would be community enriching, we don't wanna tie football's cameras either to the whole project. I would say, I mean, that'd be my opinion, because that would make us liable for those cameras.
My other hope would be that I did happen to see Marty Richards ride his bike by when they were working on the football. And it's going to be tough for these people that are at home to pay attention and see everything. I think we can all agree on that. So I thought if we had the ability to have a voiceover, just saying, tackled by number 28. This is also going to be a good opportunity for the away schools, if they're able to live stream the game as well. So this, I don't know what this number is of 1,000, but the opportunity for people to stay home and watch it, for some people's preference, would be nice as well. So I don't know all the ins and outs of this yet, but in my thoughts, I was hoping that we could come up with something so that the fans could voice.
Well, if it's a camera like this that we do our Zooming with, it has a mic on it. This is all being recorded.
Yes, right.
So,
Right. But you get all the static, where he's talking about somebody like replaying it.
Oh, they wouldn't be, it'd be live.
no, and it wouldn't be static from the booth, would it?
I wouldn't think so.
The announcer.
It'd be just like Ron Richards says now, where he says, tackled by 30, and he says their name. I think if there was a voiceover, that would be outstanding, because it'd be easy for the fan to follow. And that's why when we watched the NFL yesterday, the announcers are nonstop talking about what's going on. Marty's not here, but he likes to hear himself talk.
No. Glad you said that.
So I thought he'd be a perfect. He did say that he.
Julie, do you know, is there somebody that's gonna try and do it with volleyball?
We are not, so we're fortunate for tomorrow night's game, WRCO is gonna broadcast the game. The Chromebook that we have is a damaged Chromebook that isn't in the student population. So it has some limited capabilities, but the camera works and the mic works. So I warned our broadcasters that the mic works. But, you know, advocating for Chad, football is a different beast. You don't get to see the numbers when you have a whole field, even if they're zoomed in. A Chromebook for football really isn't practical. You can't zoom, where for, you know, we're right on this, we're using the mezzanine window. So we have the whole scene, the whole court there. It's just not as big of an issue for volleyball. I feel like even as a spectator at a football game, it's hard to see who's making the play. They all look the same. So like I said, advocating for football, I don't think a Chromebook is the right answer for them. I don't even know, Chad, that an iPad is. You can do different things after the fact if you video it and record it, but you know, an iPad is just one tiny little camera. So that might be where I this camera that Adam put into the proposal is the way it is. And I don't, there might even be an option, you know, with our church service, you can tap into sound systems and do a voiceover, so it doesn't get background noise, it's just the microphone, so Adam knows that stuff too.
The school, there are the ADs that responded to it to either use YouTube, which we're using like we're doing, which it's just gonna be through like a camera on your thing, or they pay for something like this. They use the word eye in the sky, but yeah, it was an eye in the sky was bought up like YouTube games. So our conference schools was either one or the other. Either pay for a service or the free service is just using your camera on a YouTube channel. It's all that conference school.
Is the camera for the volleyball in one spot and it just shows the whole court the whole time?
Correct. But our field is much smaller than yours. You know, we're already zoomed in, really.
Right.
I mean, you know who you're watching.
Yeah.
So did Adam say how many cameras would be needed for the football field? This is, because it says 2,000 per year per camera.
Yeah, it's per camera. He did not say how many he would need. I assumed it was one, but maybe I'm wrong.
Currently, we use two. You know, we use the end zone one that we shoot for ourselves. We use the sideline one that's not.
I'm going to assume one, only because I think he was, with the wireless being mounted in the concession stand, I don't know that there'd be a place to be able to broadcast a second, because it would need to be tied to that wireless point. But maybe that was what the optional wireless points are, so if you wanted a second camera.
So our first home game is October
9th.
So if we would table this till next week when we have our meeting, we could maybe get a little better clarification from Adam on what would be the best option.
Yeah, I mean, if it takes them using our stuff, I'm
Sure.
okay with it.
See what we can and can't do, and then you could maybe talk to Marty, or somebody could talk to Marty and see if that's a possibility.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think it'll just help
Yeah.
people.
I mean, is any other discussion from the board? Is anybody against pursuing more information on it, on what? I think the biggest thing is, I think with the information we have, it's hard to make I wouldn't know which way to go, which would be the better way. You know, so maybe we can get a little better information, and then next week we could.
I asked him, I said, why can't I just go out there with my camera on my phone? I'm like, if everybody does that, professionals do that now. And he said, because we don't have good enough internet access out there.
Yeah, I'm sure no matter what, we're gonna have to beef up the internet access, but then I think the camera options are what would be the, you know, there's quite a difference in cost, and I'd like to know what the difference is and which one's better.
And is it there forever, or could we use it in the gym for different,
Absolutely.
you know, can it be portable so that we can, maybe there's a situation where we want to broadcast volleyball with voiceover and everything else as well. Is it something that, you know, is equitable?
Yeah, if it took something of ours to make sure that there was a voiceover on volleyball, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
The other thing you mentioned was
Absolutely.
band
Yeah,
concerts and stuff.
Absolutely.
Band concerts.
I think the big thing is we don't want to make a hasty decision and
Right.
be wrong, because I don't think any of us are that techie to know a good thing. So we'll table it, and then,
Because Adam's not here, and because I know you're aware of other technological delays, because we don't make immediate decisions, I'm not trying to force you into a decision, but I just want you to be aware that material costs and availability may change.
even next week, we might not be able to get, you know, yeah. So that's, yeah. So, no, is there,
I really would hope to have a guarantee that it could happen.
yeah,
Just for
and
the sake of these people.
yeah, and I think that
I'm expecting that from other schools.
Yeah.
That's an expectation from volleyball, if the home team provides some sort of live.
Yeah.
I can't speak on behalf of the football group.
I mean, I don't, it's an extra expense, but at the same time, we've taken a lot away. It would be nice to give back where we can. Where it's, you know.
Yeah, and the sad thing is, you know, the boosters would be here and provide funding, but they haven't been able to have any fundraisers. So I'm sure most of the booster clubs are pretty well tapped out, but
And to rely on the boosters all the time for everything, that's a little pathetic too.
well, no, I mean they would help. We've got a lot of extra expenses. We want to, you know.
So motion to table till the next meeting?
We just put no action.
Just no action? Okay. All right. 9.9, discussion possible action on private school parent transportation contracts.
So our costs went up, couple reasons, because we had bought 2 buses, so our
fleet is worth more.
Our depreciation expenses went up, because even though we only had them like, what, how many days? We have to depreciate per year. So that went up, and we had less ridership this last year. We had, the year before, we had 280 some students, and this year we only had 234 students riding the bus. So that jacked the costs up. So anyway, the price per student went to $896.24, and last year was $720 something. We have 8 families and 16 children for a total of $14,339.84.
Discussion? We don't really have much.
We don't have a
We gotta do
choice.
it.
It's still so frustrating that they're not making 4 trips with 4 kids. Should be per vehicle.
It doesn't cost them that as much to run their car as it does for us to run a bus, but it is what it is until the statutes change. So read your Congress.
Any discussion? So we need a motion to approve. Mr. Manning makes a motion to approve the private school transportation contracts. Do we need the dollar amount? 14?
I put it in there.
Okay.
$14,339.84.
Okay. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Behrens. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brisboy.
Yes.
Mrs. Behrens. Yes. Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Manning. Mrs. Peterson.
Yes.
Mrs. Rowe.
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski.
Yes.
9.10, the discussion possible action on HR office bids. And some
Mrs. Behrens, you seconded that? Thank you.
So I made a copy of everything. That's what I had to run and go do. We had a Kevin O'Halloran carpentry bid for $1,500. I didn't get one, sorry. I tried to get him to, I can print more.
It's fine.
It's fine.
We're good.
The guys have already seen it a couple times, so.
We've seen it. We've seen it.
So the Kevin O'Halloran carpentry is $1,500. One bid, the Hubs construction was $2,350 for the same thing. And the Dan Fredericks was $1,200 for the same thing. And the Hackle was $1,400 for the same thing.
And in buildings and grounds, we've kind of narrowed it down to 2 rounds. We compared what was included in some and what wasn't included in some, and because there were some things that weren't included.
Such as like Dan Fredericks, we had questioning on is insulation in the walls, obviously for sound proofing, whereas the O'Halloran certainly has it listed, and I believe the Hackle one does as well. Sound dampening, $1,400. And then we had a question on the ceiling.
Yeah, that was on the
And so
Hackle one.
they patched the ceiling.
can't write my notes right on my sheet.
So did we get a clarification on that?
No, I'm sorry, what's it called? I'm gonna ask if they patched the ceiling.
Yeah, because it says, on the other ones, it says, so, correct me Ron, if I'm, we were down to the O'Halloran and the Hackover, basically, right, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, because they were only $100 apart.
Yeah.
I know that I talked to Kevin when he came in and
Okay.
I had told him that they needed to do the ceiling.
Yeah, and his says covered drywall, piece in suspended ceiling. And the HAPA one says estimate does not include demolition or removal of any existing items in space, all ceiling tile work or floor trim. It says that's in that does not include.
Okay.
And so that was our question. That was $100 less, but doesn't include.
Include the ceiling and the O'Halloran did. So I'm sorry, I did not call.
And our custodial staff can do that, but I just figured if we had someone coming in doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Not like they don't have enough to do.
Right, right.
So that,
those are the choices.
just to be clear, that's just the materials in the building room. Then it's.
Right, and there's the electric.
The carpet.
Right.
And the
So,
ductwork.
Ron, you want to do the grand total?
We talked about Halloran?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wrote it on one of them, 47 something, 46.97.
46,000. So it's $650 for the flooring. Only bid we got.
So what was the total, Julie?
When we took, I
Electric.
think Mr. Lewis did the total, it was $46.97, so $4,700. Yeah.
And that one, we have to remove the carpet that's in there. Otherwise, it's another $70 for the carpet. It says right on there, removal of old carpet, add $70.
Well, our staff is tearing out sinks in that anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, so they just,
Can't be concerned about carpet. I can do that.
yeah.
Stress
It
reliever.
depends on how frustrated she is during the day. We might all have to take a turn.
So what'd you come up with?
$46.97.50.
Our one discussion we had at Buildings and Grounds was, can they do it, work around the schedules that needs to be done? You know, or is this something that'd be better, you know?
Put back to the summer.
Put back to the summer during winter break or something like that.
That's true. I think it'll be done when it's done. Right now, the question is, are we gonna approve the costs?
Yeah, and then we just work with.
Yeah, we work around that.
Discussion?
We'll make a motion to remove Kevin's bid.
Total cost of, give it to me again, Ron.
$4,697.50.
Got it.
That's my motion. Okay. Moved by Mr. Manning to proceed with the building of the new HR office at a cost of $4,697.50. Your second.
I'll second it.
Please.
Mrs. Behrens?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Manning?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowe?
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski?
Yes.
Mr. Brisboy?
Yes.
And you guys will talk to them and see what scheduling is and.
Yep.
9/11, then discussion possible action on policy 347, middle school student advancement.
We just wanted to bring this up. We had a parent bring it up and we wanted to make sure that everybody, we'd already approved it.
Can I,
Yes, you're more than welcome to.
I just wrote something up so I didn't forget anything. So to adequately describe this problem, I'm gonna go back and give you a timeline of events. So Ithaca has been allowing qualified eighth graders to bump up to algebra for many years. I don't know for sure how long, but it's been at least a decade that I'm aware of. Mr. Bicknell's observation and opinion of students' abilities were the benchmarks at that time. Some years later, a department test was created by Mr. Stetler and has been used by Mrs. Bolin since she started here. Last year's 7th grade class took the test in February and got their results, and 12 of them were told they passed and were moving to algebra. For reasons I personally am not aware of, the test was pulled, and after being used for 4 to 5 years, was suddenly determined to not be adequate for predicting algebraic readiness. And apparently Mrs. Bolin's observations and opinions were also determined to not be adequate. So a new policy pertaining to middle school kids taking what Ithaca considers high school classes was begun in the summer and was passed the end of July. The policy was retroactively used to deny all the students access to Algebra 1 at first. None of the 3 items under letter C on the policy were able to be used as an indicator for this group of students. Number 1 specifies forward data. There was no forward data for this year, and the 6th grade test that they took would have been over a year old, so that would not be a valid indicator of their current algebra knowledge. Number 2 was iReady test scores, and this year, or last year, iReady was used as a gap filler for knowledge. From the student's perspective, they were not graded on the scores, so it didn't matter how they performed. So it would be unfair to use those scores against them when they had no idea it even mattered. And then number 3, the only department test, so it says department test and they need to score an 85% on it. The only department test that was in existence at the time this policy was implemented was one that several students passed, but those results were thrown out. After this current school year started, 3 of the 12 students were allowed to retest. And I personally don't know the reasons why all of them weren't given the opportunity. They retested using an exam called Iowa Algebra Aptitude Test, which I assumed is in lieu of the department test specified in number 3. Later, however, I was informed that this test and the score that was picked as the threshold for a pass until algebra had nothing to do with the policy whatsoever. In my opinion, the policy as a whole has several issues going forward, and we will need to re-examine it in policy and bring it back to the board. The reason we're discussing this tonight is because I would like to see all of the children who are denied access to algebra get a fair shake. So think about this for a minute. We had a system in place for over a decade, which all the students knew. And while I'm not a proponent of this is the way we've always done it, so this is the way we need to keep doing it, I am a proponent of clear communication and expectations. This year's 8th grade class was not given either of those things. They came into the game thinking they knew the rules. They followed the rules and some of them won the prize. Then months later, we changed the rules, retroactively applied them to these students, and then told them they didn't win the prize after all. I don't know if public entities applying policy after the fact is legal, but even if it is, it certainly isn't fair or equitable. I don't know what can be done for any of them at this point, but I wanted the board to be aware of what we did to them and open up a discussion. I feel bad about my part in this for not investigating it further, and I wanted to bring it up tonight. And I want to close with our mission statement. Ithaca Public Schools' mission is to ensure the highest levels of learning in a positive, safe, community-rich environment while building on strengths, encouraging accountability, and helping all learners fulfill their potential. Are we actually doing this, or are we just paying it lip service? Well, yeah.
Would you like me to respond to some of that?
Absolutely.
We've already had this discussion. You were involved in it.
Yes, and that's why I'm bringing it up, because when I make mistakes, I admit them and try to fix them. And we made a mistake. We did not do right by these students.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about Ilana, because I've already told her, and that's gone. That's done. I am worried about the other students now, because they got screwed too. So you can pull whatever motives you think I have out of this, because this has nothing to do with her.
I'm just asking to finish my comment. So we had a lot of discussion about this. And the reason we did is because we found that there was a lot of students that were being put into algebra that in reality were not ready for it. After looking at the 13 students that supposedly were ready for skipping 8th grade math and looking at their scores, a lot of them weren't even at grade level. So we looked at different schools in the state and we looked at their reasoning to skip 8th grade. Those were the three reasons. The test you're talking about that some of the seventh graders took, Miss Boland had nothing to do with the test. I talked with Mr. Trappan, I talked with Miss Boland, I talked with our new math teacher. They did not believe that test was indicative of a student's ability to move to ninth grade.
They did say that she didn't write the test. I said Mr. Stetler did, and she continued to use it.
And she had told me that she didn't know anything about the test. Somebody asked her to take it, some student did. So she made copies and handed it out.
Are you sorry, this is Paula.
Yep.
The test that we give every year, is that the one you were discussing?
Yes.
So yes, Mr. Stetler wrote that test, and since he wasn't here, I had a copy of it in my file, so I just made copies last year, and I administered that test, since Mr. Stetler was not here.
Yep.
Go ahead, Ms. Boland.
Well, I did know about the test, just Mr. Stetler always was in charge of that, so, but I did know about it the year prior. But since he wasn't here last year, that's why I was in charge of giving it out to the students that I had, the middle school students.
Like I said, we had a lot of discussion about this. We believe the iReady test is valid. And that's why we felt that the iReady test should show that you're at the end of 8th grade as far as your math ability. None of our students showed that. We did not have anybody, now we did not have the forward exam this year. So we went back and looked at the 6th grade score. One person had, that was close to that. So the reason we picked the certain students to take the other test was because we looked at the scores from iReady and that was taken in January of 2020. And we also looked at the forward exam from their 6th grade year. So we gave an opportunity to some of the students to take that test. Actually, because they didn't hit the criteria on the board approved middle school student advancement, I really wasn't for it. But we decided that because of COVID and some other things, and Ms. Plonka believing that this test would be a valid indicator, I agreed to do that, have them take that test. I talked to Mr. Trappan, I talked to Ms. Prouty, talked with Ms. Boland about it, also talked with Mr. Herbst about it. They looked at the test. Ms. Plonka actually took the test, thought that the students would have no problems acing the test. So we asked about what a score should be. Again, we're asking, or we're telling an 8th grader that they can skip an entire year of 8th grade math. So we thought the score should be at least 90%, and 90% puts you at basically a B level. And that's where we went from there.
Well, as I said, they had no idea when they were doing iReady this year that it was going to count against them. It's my understanding that lots of them maybe didn't take it seriously because it was something they just did during attack time.
I don't
I'm
agree
sure you
with that at all.
Also, I mean, what we did follow is.
But this is a discussion that we had already in policy. And we talked for
Yes,
over an
that's-
hour about it.
That's why I'm bringing it forward, because usually when I'm not a subject matter expert, I just trust and probably didn't do the proper amount of research on this, and I feel really bad about that. So.
Well, you'll find out that most schools say that the students must be advanced on their forward exam.
Okay, which they didn't have.
I can look back for quite a few years on their forward exam. And we agreed that, hey, they didn't have it in 7th grade.
As my husband likes to say, we could all agree to speed when we go to school too, and it still doesn't make it right. We had a policy in place that we retroactively applied to students who had different expectations. That's
Well,
all
we
I'm
can
saying.
also try.
Whatever you guys want to do with that is fine, because it doesn't affect me or my family. But I thought those kids got a very unfair shake, and I wanted to present it to the board, so I have.
Well, nobody had any complaints about using this criteria to move up to the English in 9th grade, which we had numerous kids that did pass that. There were no complaints on that for the people that passed it. Again, to me, this seems like we're trying to square a circle.
I don't know what that means.
Well, there's only so many data points we can look at to see if a person is ready for this. And after talking to Mr. Crepon for almost a year on the kids that had been bumped up and how well they did on the ACTs and if they took the SAT, he thought that it was a deficit for some of the kids. And again, we did a lot of research on what other schools do in the state as far as who should advance, because it can't be just somebody's opinion.
I just would like to interject through my curriculum work. One thing that it was brought to mind, because I mean, the tradition of bumping has been 40 years, right? Like I didn't get bumped up, but that's okay. Steve might have. What we found though is that there's a significant amount of math taught in 8th grade. And if you skip that, that can be a detriment. So, like when I was going through my curriculum licensure, I had a woman that is the math coach in Hillsborough that I highly respect. She's a 40-year veteran of math. Mr. Trapani, I talked with him, you know, just that skipping of grades can be a detriment later. Was it right in this situation? I don't know, but when we look at 7th grade math, 8th grade math, like the content of it, and then algebra, 8th grade math is not taught until farther. So if they don't get that depth of knowledge, it could hurt them.
I understand the need for the policy. I just think that it was handled very poorly, and maybe we need to be using a few other factors for this particular grade. They're an exceptional grade. I don't think we're gonna have a grade after this that would have had 12 or 13 or whatever anyway. It just looked like a big number because it's a pretty smart class. But I agree there needs to be a policy. We need to get good data points on the policy. The forward exam data, it's my understanding, doesn't even come in until August anyway. So I mean, even if we leave that on the policy, we're doing schedules at the last minute again, which isn't ideal either. So, I mean, I'm not arguing that. I'm not arguing that maybe we're bumping up too many kids. I'm saying there are kids in that class who I'm confident would get A's and would do great in algebra. I mean, if we're using iReady as a gap filler and there's something that they didn't quite hit on.
iReady is two things. One, it's a data point because forward takes forever. So we do it 3 times a year. We do it, actually, they're doing it now because we're trying to get it done before we go virtual. So we have a more accurate thing, and then we do it in January, and then we do it again in the spring to show growth. So as a teacher, as a math and reading teacher, I would want to see my students now, they better grow and be at least a year's progress, and if not, it's on me. So we are using it, and this last year I think was the 2nd full year that we used it. And I mean, we chose that rather than we had used STAR before, and STAR didn't line up with standards. We tried MAPS before. MAPS was impossible to read the data. So iReady is something that's been.
Yeah, iReady part of reading did show that we had certain students that passed out of it, that they were past 8th grade. It really matched up with what they did on their 6th grade forward exams. We had nobody even be in 8th grade on the iReady math exam.
At the mid-year of their 7th grade.
Yes. But yet we saw quite a few kids pass out of the iReady in the English. which is pretty typical that correlates with a forward exam, that English seems to be a little bit, we have more kids qualify in that as far as advanced.
Well, I don't have a problem with the I-ready data. It's probably an awesome data point for our policy. My problem is our clear communications. They didn't know when they were testing on it that it was actually gonna work against them. So that's just my thing.
Well,
It was
we hadn't
handled
changed
poorly.
the
It wasn't
policy yet.
communicated well. I'm sorry, what?
We hadn't changed the policy yet.
at that point.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess that's another thing. We brought the policy in July and we knew we couldn't meet these data points, so we probably should have had a contingency plan in place and actually discussed each of the students. Hey, we can't do A. It wasn't really fair to do B. We threw out letter C and don't have a new one yet, so what can we do for these kids? So, I mean, I feel like we all kind of dropped the ball on it. I'm not blaming any one person because I was there too. I'm just saying I don't feel good about the way we handled it, so I wanted to bring it up. If nobody else has any issues with it, then that's fine, we can move on, but I just wanted everybody to know.
I appreciate your frustrations and you're doing it. The only step at this point would be is to rediscover it in policy, you know, take it back to policy, and if policy wants to, you know, look at and redo the policy and or add things, then it can come back to the whole board.
And I'm pretty sure I put it on policy, just in case I wanted to do that. I can't remember.
Didn't see it, but maybe.
Maybe I
might
forgot.
have
That's
missed it.
very possible.
That would be the next step. Any other discussion?
This is Chris Willis. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I'm wondering what part a teacher's recommendation would have in that process of a 8th grader taking algebra. What % of the decision comes from a teacher's opinion?
I guess that would be in the policy, right?
It is in the policy right now.
The way it's written in the policy that any one person on a 4-person committee can overrule it with no real reason. I mean, all four committee members have to agree. So even if the gifted and talented coordinator and the middle school teacher and the subject and the high school teacher agreed, then, you know, obviously a principal could overrule all 3 of them. Or vice versa, it could be any other person too. I'm saying just if the principal, the gifted and talented coordinator, and the middle school teacher all agree, the high school teacher could say nope. So I guess 25%, but could completely be overruled. So I guess if that answers your question.
But I think at this point, we've had a policy that was brought to the, went through policy, was brought to the board, was accepted. So the only thing that we have now is it would have to go back to policy and be redone and brought back to the board.
Yeah, if we're okay with the fact that we retroactively apply to policy, yeah. Then yeah, that would be the next step.
Well, I don't know if it was retroactive. The school year hadn't started yet.
Well, they met the expectations that were given to them and told they were moving on, and then
I don't
we
know
put the
that
policy in
they
place.
did not meet the expectations.
This is Paula. We had the test. They had the opinion of the math department because I talked with Mr. Topon, and then the parents, we had to have a discussion with the parents. That was the 3 criteria that we had put in place for this test. So all the parents that either came and talked to me personally during parent-teachers conferences and asked what I thought of their students doing it. So I know that it doesn't go along with the criteria now, but it wasn't just my opinion and the test. And some of those 7th graders test higher than the last year's 8th graders that are now in algebra. So I know we don't know.
We're talking about skipping a grade.
But it's just, I understand that, and I understand that they do need some guidelines, but it's not like I just gave them this test and I'm like, yeah, I think you should move on. I mean, they had to meet some criteria too, and like some of those students did beat the now freshmen in this test. So I don't know.
But I think the point is still is you know, the policy was brought to the board, the new policy was brought to the board and presented. We voted and okayed it. I think the only step is if we are adjusting a policy that was already voted on, is it has to go back to policy committee, be reworded, whatever, and brought back, and we vote on it and talk about it then. I mean, that's the point of a committee. Unless we want to talk about it at a whole board meeting, but I would need, you know, the information that we bring to a policy committee to talk to all those, you know, points. That's just my opinion.
This is Chris again. When we did the class lists, we were told which kids were in algebra based on the same procedure that I think we've been using for quite some time. Even before Steve, we had kind of a common procedure, whether it was, you know, official or approved or whatever. We've had something we've used for quite some time. And the kids that we thought were going on to algebra all were put into one group so that it would work in the master schedule. So I don't know when the policy was approved, but if it had been approved before all of that happened, you know, we weren't aware of it because, you know, the middle school teachers work together to decide which kids are in section A and section B, and a large part of that has to do with which kids take algebra versus which ones are in 8th grade math. And that split still exists. We just have now a lot of kids that, you know, we're ready for that, or we thought we're ready for that other math class that now are back in 8th grade math. So I don't know when that policy was approved, but we, you know, by the time we did our class list, we weren't made aware of anything, so.
July 27th, Mrs. Blazinski said that policy was passed at the July 27th meeting, not at policy. That was at the board meeting.
Yes.
So, yeah. Any further discussion?
I put no action, the policy will go back to the policy committee.
Are we good with that?
Yeah, I mean, I presume that the all four, that obviously after the testing, when they got together and discussed it, that, you know, they weren't all in agreement. And that's what it says right on there, that, you know, all four must approve.
So we're okay. No action is what we're taking.
And they'll go back to policy.
Okay.
Review.
Do we want a motion? Do we need any motion? No action?
There's no action on this. That's what how I interpret it. It would be no action at this. I'm not hearing anything.
Okay. There's no action. 9:12, discussion possible action on setting committee dates. 9:12:1, finance and personnel, Monday, October 12th, which would be our normal meeting, right? Before our normal meeting. Is that right?
Yes.
So a motion to set finance and personnel at 6:30 on October 12th.
Cheryl, is 6:30, is that enough time? Do we go over any of the figures for the annual meeting?
If I have them done, yes.
So do we want to go earlier?
Probably 6.
Yeah, I mean, I think typically we've had a little bit longer.
Okay. Susan, you okay with that? 6? Okay. So motion to set finance committee at 6 on October the 12th.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Ms. Peterson, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, that's set. 9/12/2 policy, Wednesday, September 16th. Is that one set already or not?
No, because
No.
no.
Okay, so does that work with the policy at 5? Is that right? Does that work?
Yep.
Okay, motion to set policy. Okay, by Mrs. Rowe, is there a second?
I'll second.
By Ms. Blazinski. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. 9/12/3, buildings and grounds, Wednesday, October 7th. I have that in here already.
I do.
Sure.
Okay, so that one's set already.
It is.
10 years.
Randy's
Randy's screen is really small. Okay, so that one's already set. 9/12/4 curriculum and instruction, Thursday, October 1. I have
Is that
on
at
my
5? You have 5:30. I had 5. That was sent out electronically.
Okay, so 5 o'clock.
Is it 5? Okay.
Okay, who else is on that one?
I am.
Okay, you guys are good?
Don't forget Kelly over there.
You're good with that? Okay. Is that one set already? Because I had that in mind.
It's on mine.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I think so, because I had that in mind already. So we're good on that one?
Yep.
Okay. 9/13, discussion possible action on setting board meeting dates. So Monday, October 12th, I don't have that on here yet, so we must not have set it. So we need to set one for Monday, October 12th.
I'll
at
make
7.
that motion.
And Mrs. Peterson, or second?
Second it. I would add that it consistently says 7:30 on our Ithaca website for our school board meeting start time. And that probably needs to be correct. It said it today.
So there's another one, October 1st, the official school calendar has 5:30 for
I
curriculum.
took it straight from the minutes, so when they change, if I don't get told they changed.
Okay.
So on the Ithaca website right now, October 1st curriculum is at 5:30.
Yeah, that'll need to be changed to 5.
Minutes.
Okay. All right, so then Monday, October 12th at 7. The motion to set it,
7 o'clock.
yeah, 7 o'clock.
Make sure it's properly communicated. I will also move to.
Okay, moved by Mr. Briscoe.
No, we already have a Mrs. Peterson motion, Mrs.
Okay,
Rose seconded.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. So then we have another motion to set a meeting for the 23rd, right?
26.
26, September.
No,
Oh.
September.
Oh,
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah.
Is that a Wednesday?
Yes, it is.
Wednesday, September 23rd?
23rd.
At 7.
Yep.
Yep.
Motion to set that.
So moved.
Mr. Briscoe, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Ms. Peterson, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, so that's set, September 23rd at 7. Okay, then
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
9/13.2 annual meeting reminder, because that's already set.
Yep.
Monday, October 26th.
And I didn't know about the time, so I put 7.
I think that's what time.
That's what we have. I have
Okay.
now.
Thank you. I just wanted to get the agenda done.
That's just a reminder, Monday, October 26th, 7 annual meeting. Everybody good with that?
Yep.
Okay. 10 then, adjourn to closed session under Wisconsin statute 19.851C for consideration, employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. In closed session, discussion regarding performance evaluation of district employees, teaching staff, administrators, coaching staff. We'll be in closed session, not less than 5 minutes, but probably more.
I'll move to go into closed session.
Motion by Mr. Brisboy to go into closed session, second by Mr. Manning, roll call.
Mrs. Blazinski? Yes. Mr. Brisboy?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferriens?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Manning? Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowe?
Yes.
We're in closed, we're going to,
You go to art.
You want to go to art today? I have to use the restroom, so.
anybody else have to go back through?
Oh, that sounds like a good. Just saying. Sorry, might as well. Just in case.
Dog's like, dude, you didn't even leave anything.
I don't know, do we need Mr. Lechner in closed session?
I think everyone went to the bathroom, I don't know.
Okay, we'll ask you.
Okay.
I guess it's not down there now.
Steve, do you remember this thing, I got all contracts to use in the district or what it was?
Well, I have tons of stuff.
She'll know, she'll know.
Tons of stuff.
So who signs on,
I couldn't remember, like,
Eight?
no, the coaches' contracts.
Normally
I
it's,
couldn't remember if it's a district, I'm like.
I'm thinking it was Julie and one of the board members.
I think probably. Okay. So leave them in the file and we'll.
Right here, with that pile of,
So there, sure, and then.
I'll get them back to you, Zach.
I just wondered, a couple of them are in there, because they were coaches. Yeah, but like after in person,
Paper agenda one, I need an agenda. That's what happened with most of them.
Yes, definitely.
And I don't blame him.
I don't either.
He said he's burned out. It's like, I'm thinking,
Just Frank's left? Frank, go to bed.
I'm gonna run to the restroom.
Oh, yeah.
I've done it before, but.
I'm assuming this is a good one. Where is it? There it is. Hey, Frank, are you there? Can you hear me? You must not get any sleep. Do you remember Mrs. Shue's first name, Frank's wife's name?
I don't.
I don't even have, Frank's not even in here. My goodness. So Heather Dickey's mom is not doing what,
Oh, that's not good.
she said, my mom just messaged me. Apparently they're keeping her tonight as well. So maybe she's in the hospital?
Must be. She did have cancer and had surgery to remove and went through chemo.
Reconvene in open session.
I'll move.
Moved by Mr. Brisboy, is there a second? Second by Mr. Manning, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, 11.1 then, discussion possible action on resignation of middle school track coach. Mr. Prouty is resigning, right?
I'm sorry, who seconded?
I did. Mr. Manning.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Tappan.
His resignation with many thanks and is there a motion to accept his resignation?
So moved.
By Mrs. Peterson, is there a second? Okay, Mrs. Blazinski seconded it, Mrs. Peterson the first. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? 11.2, discussion possible action on hiring temporary custodian. No action because we're gonna post that. 11.3, discussion possible action hiring before and after school bus aides and recommendation of the 4.
So Melissa Hutchinson, Katie Fry, Mrs. Shu, whose first name is escaping me right this minute, and Aubrey Wiedenfield at $9 an hour each.
Okay, can we do them all in one? Okay, so those 4 named, is there a motion to accept those 4 as the bus aides?
I will so move.
By Mr. Brisboy, is there a second?
I'll second.
By Ms. Blazinski, roll call please.
Mrs. Behrens? Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Manning?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowe?
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski?
Yes.
Mr. Brisboy?
Yes.
11.4, then discussion possible action on increasing the hours on current paraprofessional.
No.
No action?
No
You're
action.
just redoing them, so no
Just
action on that?
moving them around a little bit.
Okay.
No action.
11.5, discussion possible action on hiring volleyball coaches. The 2 coaches recommended.
Mrs. Liz Niemeyer and Angela Young.
I'll make that motion.
By Mrs. Peterson, is there a second? By Mrs. Rowe, roll call please.
Mr. Manning?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowe?
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's
Mr.
okay.
Brisboy?
Yes.
Mrs. Behrens? Yes. Mr. Lewis?
Yes. 11.6 and no action there, right?
Correct.
Okay. 11.7, discuss possible action on paying Mrs. Bevan extra summer hours due to COVID changes at the hours are
10.25 hours.
10.25 hours. Move by Mr. Manning to approve the 10.2 hours. Is there a second? By Mrs. Variance. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Rowe?
Yes.
Mrs. Blazinski?
Yes.
Mr. Brisboy?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferriant?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Manning? Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
12 then, motion to adjourn.
Also moved.
Moved by Mrs. Peterson. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Variance. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed?
There's a bunch of paperwork there.
Ron's already signing furiously.
Is it just clerk and press?
This one here.
I think the treasurer is on the,
I'm working on it. I gotta hit sugar.
Oh, I wrote the names down. for him.
Now it's dried out.
I'm just this one?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think so.
What did you say, you gave me a bowl of cereal?
That's what my wife does. Anytime, like, it doesn't matter what time of the day it is. She's in a hurry. Just have a bowl of cereal.
My mother puts a bowl of cereal with banana on it every single morning, every single morning. Every single morning.
once I get the minutes done, I'll have to have you come back.
Okay,
and-
so shoot me an email, pretty good. Open.
What do I need to sign there?
So many things.
I know, I signed a bunch the other day. It wasn't this pile, look.
Nope.
Golly, what did I do?